All right, I think we are live now. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Konnichiwa. Konbanwa.
Exactly.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Genki desu ka? Hi. Daijoubu? No.
That works, totally.
Nani?
Yeah. It is Saturday night. It's time for the Weekly Dig. For anyone new to the stream, this is a live show. We dig into anime, old and new. I'm Brent. These are my amazing co-hosts, John. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
And Steve. Say hi, Steve.
Hola, Esteban.
There we go.
Esteban.
Esteban.
Oh boy, that's flashbacks to Mysterious Cities of Gold. We'll start our dig tonight by analyzing, Serial Experiments Lain, episodes 1 through 4. Yep, we're gonna do it. We are going to go in and dig into a series that I know a lot of folks are familiar with on this channel because I've done a couple videos about it, and yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Just first four episodes, we're actually going DVD by DVD. So if you have the old DVD releases of Lain, episodes 1 through 4, and then 3 episodes through. So we're gonna start there and dig into this show, and boy, is it a show. I have my notes, lots of them. Yeah, we're gonna talk about stuff.
And are you gonna issue the warning about like this could cause cranial explosion or anything like that?
Lain is a really weird show, so be ready for that. A lot happens here. Content warning. This show deals with people taking their own lives. It deals with psychological issues, people having psychological problems. It deals with addiction. It deals with, I would say, depression, without sort of going too deep on that. Or not diagnosing it per se. So first off, I want to know from you all, what is your exposure to Lain? I want to know this from the group itself. So I'm throwing up a poll in YouTube. Would love to see if anyone wants to talk about that one. And so my question is, John, what is your exposure to Lain before this?
First of all, let me say that's amazing. Where did you find that poll?
It's a feature of YouTube that I've just never seen before.
That's cool. Okay. You have a video that's ancient about Lain.
Yep.
We've talked about Lain. We've talked about Lain at cons post panels. So finally, gosh, what, like 3-4 years ago?
Okay.
I sat down. I was like, okay, it's a great Saturday. I'm feeling peppy. It's good. Let's just settle on into that. Oh, good night.
I was just like, yeah, here's your mood killer.
Yeah. So it was like, I took an entire day, 2 days. It was Saturday, Sunday, and I watched through the whole thing.
Wow.
And I was just like, holy, what is going on in the show? So that was my exposure to Lain, and now this is the second time through.
Okay, cool. Steve, how about yourself?
First time, totally new to this.
Nice.
I've been aware of it. Seen clips here and there, but really never watched it. And I love it, by the way, so far.
Good.
And
Cool.
and I'm very surprised that this is something that I have not started watching back when it came out, and I'm not sure why my radar missed it.
Sure.
Because it's totally up my alley. But I will say that the people in my apartment building were probably hearing, and that was my head hitting the desk as I'm watching this. Like, what is going on? This is great, but I don't understand. And so much was like, so much was creeping me out. It was really great. I knew I was in for a ride when it opens up and goes, present day, ha ha ha. Present time. Ha, ha. It's just like going, oh god.
And like nails on a blackboard. Like,
Exactly. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Everybody responded that they have seen it several times. So this is a popular show with the chat. That's awesome. Matt, I have read the fan fiction where Major Kusanagi is dealing with problems with like computer stuff and discovers it's actually Lain. Like a future like version of Lain in the internet. They have a conversation in this fan fiction. It works. Oddly enough, it actually works.
I'm not sure it's psychologically ready.
It's definitely, as we like to say, a thing.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, my fourth watching of Lain. At least I saw it once before, once with my mom, oddly enough, and then rewatched it a while back when I was doing all those videos about the show, and then here, yet again. So yeah, it's a pretty remarkable show. I actually have another question just for the group because a lot of folks said they've seen Lain. So I want to know, and this is not a question for my fabulous co-hosts, but I'm just curious if you folks think, does Lain make sense to you, or is it just like a fever dream? Like, does it seem just completely, arbitrary, if you will?
I'm not allowed to answer?
Well, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. We'll go through the theory.
So I hear that, and man, the premise never really interested you. Yeah, and Lain, and let's start there. Lain is a very unique show. It's very experimental. It's very artsy in its presentation and its visual style and so forth. So this is not One Piece. This is not, Naruto. This is not easily consumable anime that kind of comes together. And that is just kind
that's
of
an understatement.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to point out, yes, Lain has a video game. I've been playing it over on the Twitch side. That's a whole thing we can talk about. But I was lucky enough back in 2001 to go to Otakon, where the entire con was themed around Serial Experiments Lain. They got the creator, the Yasuki Ueda, they got the character designer, Yoshiyoshi Abe, they got the band that did the opening theme song were there.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah, whole bunch of folks, and I went to a panel with the creators, and folks were like, "So, I have this theory. Is this correct? I have this theory. This is correct." And they said in that panel, the creative staff all agreed that we would all come up with our version of events that kind of explains what's going on, so we would all understand it and be able to make it. But that we would allow any interpretation of Lain to be valid. We're not going to sit here and say, that your interpretation of the show is wrong. Whatever interpretation you come up with is fine by us. We don't want to get into, the nitty-gritty of are you right or are you wrong. It's kind of counterproductive. So, from this perspective, we're going to talk about all sorts of things about Lain, and it's one of the fun things about the show is you can just kind of go anywhere. You can kind of start making connections and start figuring things out and start seeing where things are going without worrying about whether you're getting it right or not. Again, I have a theory, which I will be advising or aiming towards, but that is just, the way Lain is that there are lots of different ways of kind of assembling the different pieces. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll, see where that ended up. I'm quite curious. Most people said, I don't know anymore. I hear ya. And then it makes sense. It's all a fever dream, or maybe if I squint. Each got 20% of the vote. So fair enough. Good to know all around, so that is fine. So let's talk about the show. This is a show that begins in a very unusual way. It begins literally with the main character looking at you out of the television screen. And lest we forget, this is what a CRT screen with, distortion would look like.
Yeah.
And so this is a message, right? This is a show that is messing around with what anime is, with audience and all that kind of stuff. And then you jump into this really interesting opening credit sequence with all this imagery being thrown at you.
Yeah. Well, when that first image made me think too, it's like I just recently got rid of a 20-year-old television, and it had been on Cartoon Network so much that burned into a corner of the screen.
Wow!
It's like that was the TV that the dogs had for them to keep them company when I wasn't home. So seeing that first image, I was like, oh, geez, that's like lanes burned into the after image of the television.
Yes.
Like CRT. I'm like,
and again, that is an intentional symbol of the show. And then you get this iconic opening credit sequence with all the stuff going on. And a few things I want to mention about this. One is, it seems to be interrupting your own broadcast. It does seem a little bit like a pirate signal coming in. Also,
Max headroom on board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What is the opening line of the theme song? Anyone pick that up? And you don't seem to understand.
Yeah, okay.
Like, there's an interesting first line. This is going to be hard to understand.
Yeah, that kind of characterizes what happens for the rest of the series. Like, here we go.
Yeah. And you get all these images of which, as you get into the show, you realize, oh, that's what they're kind of talking about. Of all of these characters standing around watching Lain on television. Which is very odd. And even further, you get this kid on the floor playing some kind of like VR game with Lain on the television, but clearly like he's not playing a game with Lain in it. Yeah, he's not seeing her. So there's some weird disconnect going on there. So they're giving you a lot of information. By the way, we will see this kid again.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then and you start getting this dichotomy. So one thing I want to point out here, without kind of leading one down the garden path, you'll notice that there are two different kinds of shots in the opening credit sequence. There are these very fuzzy shots with a lot of imagery going along, and shots of Lain looking very self-confident, apparently nude, or at least no clothes obviously on her, but like yelling at you, basically from the screen. And then those are contrasted by these other shots of Lain walking around in a very real-world environment. And personality is different. Like these are very different things going on here. And then Lain crosses the crosswalk, which I know when I first saw that I was like, oh, what an interesting visual thing for them to do. What an odd kind of artistic or architectural thing. This is in Japan everywhere. Like these are just ubiquitous. But then she sees the crow freeze in midair, which is again sort of one of these iconic moments in the show. As the cap flies off her. And then she walks away with the cap in midair.
Yeah.
Which again...
At which point...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at which point I was just like... I saw that, I was just like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Screen. And then tapping my screen and going, oh, no.
Not a mistake. A friend of mine, he said when the hat flies off and she sees that crow, that's when he became an anime fan.
Huh.
That moment where he was like, oh, this is not your typical cartoon. Like, stuff's going on here. And then Lain is staring at you. I am not sure. We'll have to find out later. There is a shot in Lain later on that is animated by the character designer. He was not so Yoshoshi Abe, the character designer of this, was hired to do this show because they just liked his art. in the game initially as well. But he had no idea how to character design. He was not an animator. He was not involved in the process or so forth. So they asked him to kind of create this character. So he literally filled a sketchbook with sketches of Lain, this character, and then sent that in. And they're like, thank you very much. And he later found out that they then handed that off to somebody who actually made like TV-style character designs out of that. But they just wanted that artistic style. In fact, I was, again, at a panel with him and the character designer of Utna. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
Oh, boy.
and they asked him, how do you create characters? And Utna's character designer was saying, well, so I sit down and then I stylize the character, make sure it fits well on TV, and I do it from these different angles. And Abe goes, I literally had no idea how that worked until just now. Because I literally just mailed in a sketchbook. That was my process. Okay. But the creators said they wanted Abe to have something in the show, to actually have a piece of himself in the show. And so there is a shot of Lain staring at you. Again, it's later on, but this may be from it as well. That he actually animated himself just to kind of put a little bit of himself in the show. So that's kind of neat. So then we start with a bunch of different imagery. And again, not to get too crazy here, but one of the first pieces of imagery, we can go deep.
Yes, we can.
It's literally a stop sign, and it's telling us to stop. I think this image is very deliberate as saying, okay, everybody, you know this is an anime now. Hold on. Pay attention. Focus. Things are going to get weird.
Your hands inside the
Yeah.
car at all times.
And so we come to this very non-anime spot, a back alley in like Roppongi or some like very seedy part of the city.
Harajuku.
Yeah. Of the Demon City. And you get this girl with glasses. What's interesting looking back on it is how she's out of breath. Like she's been running, and I don't know why, honestly. I don't know what she's been running from. Because there's nothing in the show to indicate why she would be doing that. Because it's not like she's just scared. It's like she has been running from things. Again, I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, I think if you cast it forward, it seems more like she is literally running from herself.
Fair point. Yep.
Because if you think about the dialogue that comes later, where she's
Yeah.
talking to Lain,
True.
it's kind of like, okay, she's running to what occurs.
Yes, exactly.
So it's funny that you say that the actual movement, because when I saw that, what I saw was not her out of breath because she was running, but rather that she was panicking. She was having a meltdown, and that there was some type of mental crisis happening at that moment. And then as we move forward, suddenly it resolves itself.
Fair.
So there's like, I thought, kind of a little bit to your point, John,
Yeah.
that there was some type of like mental fight going on, and it comes out physically as just like,
Yeah.
I can't catch my breath. I can't, whatever.
And you're probably right. Just this time watching it, I was like, it seems like she's out of breath, but that makes more sense. And we see, I love these just random girls who are like, ha 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 ha, she's throwing up, and just sort of walk off. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
thank you,
The humanity.
Thank you for caring. Thank you for caring.
Yeah, I thought it was particularly interesting because a lot of shows, you have callous people around or people who just ignore things. But, a lot of shows you do have the person who walks over is like, Daijoubu? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you guys took a particular stance on this where she's having a crisis of some sort and people are just callously indifferent to it.
Yeah.
It's like, no question, or you need help, no question you need a police officer, nothing. Just
And
like,
and it's one of the things about the show is that this is very much about real people dealing with sort of real issues. It's not, here comes the hero, here is the villain, right? It's just people doing their thing. This is also where we first see these wonderful splotchy shadows that are so unique to Lain.
yeah.
The fact that these, and obviously look like blood specks, but in other shots they look more just like they're stylized. They're obviously like paint spatters
Or demon portals.
And that's the thing. It's like I kept looking the second time around, looking at this. I'm like, this is like the border between reality and like an altered dimension. So like we're seeing like along the sort of surface of it where the real world is, and then anywhere off of that plane is this other dimension. I'm like, dude, stop doing this.
and meanwhile, in the background,
yeah, that ever-present buzz. You guys have seen my photos of my Japan trip, where I would just take photos of like that, of like just power lines, because like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it looks like in Japan. And by the way, one of the things in Japan, very little power was actually put under this underground. It was almost all just strung up in wires, for a variety of reasons. But this is like a very common thing that just everything is out there invisible.
Is it easier to fix from an earthquake versus like having it in the ground?
No, apparently it's just like it's cheap, and so we just do it that way.
Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get, again, not typical anime, a guy walking home with a very accommodating lady, who I'm sure they're going to have a good time. And then we get, again, this sort of iconic image of Chisa first unbinding her hair. There's a sign. And then she says something, and I deeply appreciate the fact that there is no audio here in any of the tracks.
Yeah.
They just animate with flaps. That's all you see. So there's no way for us to ever know what she said. But
look, Mom, I can fly.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Not
you can't.
quite.
Gravity.
Yeah. But she's holding out her glasses, and this is the first time I kind of realized what's going on here, is that the glasses represent her frail self. Those are her limitations that she's sort of pushing out beyond herself. Thinking, I won't need these anymore. I won't need this imperfect part of myself. I can kind of, I can leave this behind. And then she does that. And
her hand holding on there represents the rail self.
Nice.
Yeah. That one I did. Now, where did you? Is this interpretation, or did they say something about that in the panel?
Interpretation.
Because I was trying to figure out.
Interpretation.
I'm like, why is she holding that out?
Yeah, no, they did not say, but I'm assuming that's what that means.
Okay. Or that she's perfected in what she's about to do.
Yeah.
So the limitations of eye problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's
going someplace where these won't be relevant anymore.
Could also be she's trying a different perspective. Like this is a new way of seeing the world, and so she's kind of looking at it that way.
Ooh. Okay. Gotcha.
That definitely works. And then she lets go, and down she goes.
Figuratively and literally.
Yes. And you get this. What passes for comedy in Lain is that she hits the ground, all that happens, and then the sign just thunk.
Well, she hits the sign.
Yeah.
She literally clonks it on the way down.
Yeah.
And then that was there. It's a hard moment not to kind of chuckle.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're just kind of like horrified. What's going on? Like,
Right.
It's like well, they showed a shot of her, nose diving, and it's going down. You're like, oh, okay, here we go, and it cuts away to the amorous couple.
Yeah.
And then you hear the chunk, and then people going, but you don't really hear screams. You hear people going, what the hell was that?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, what was that? I don't know. What's going on here? And then the thing falls off.
Yeah.
You have the chuckle. And then, you see the hand in the blood. And then, and like, people just like reacting to it, going, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's basically,
it has nothing to do with me. I'm
at it. Okay, this doesn't concern me. I'm gonna walk away from this. And the amorous couple is just like, they're looking at it as they're confused, and they're like going, to me, it's almost like they're thinking, should I be horrified because I'm kind of feeling that way right now?
Right.
I want to go to the Love Hotel.
Yeah.
And
which I mean, arguably for the neighborhood that it's in. This is horrifying, but it's probably it seems like kind of a
not
rough
exceedingly
neighborhood
rare.
where people are, well, a rough neighborhood where even if it is rare, they don't want to be involved.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
good
like,
point.
If there's something seedy going on,
Yep.
these people are not going to want to be the ones to be like, yeah, let me walk into the police box. And be like, hi, I know you got a warrant out for me, but I just saw something. You're like, no.
I
They're
did
gonna
not
hijack
say
it.
this. I was not here.
Can I have your name for the police report? John Doe?
Exactly. And then we pan up again, and to her school bag and the little charm hang off it. Again, just to kind of for the series to go, no, this isn't funny. Like this is a tragedy. Like things are happening here. And to be clear, Japan was facing a spate of teen suicides in the 90s. This was definitely a problem that they were kind of struggling with as a society. What was going on? What was causing all this? And then you get more of these shots. So we get Lain finally shows up, walking out of her house. And what's fascinating about this, and again, kind of going back to some of the things we talked about before, is that there's almost nothing physical in this shot. There's Lain, and there are these weird shadows, and then just this bleached sun. And if you want any more indication that, Lain is at the nexus of a lot of weird things happening, I think this is one of the shots.
Yeah, because Lane's not bleached out.
Nope.
It's like everything else is like there's an atomic bomb going on. It's super bleached out.
Yep.
And yet, everything with her is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's just walking to school.
Yeah.
And more of these wonderful splotchy shadows. And they did say in the panel that these shadows were meant to represent this unreality, this blending of the real world and the Wired, as we'd seen later. And just getting that across. I think it was the director who came up with that idea of saying we should make the shadows just look really, really weird. And so,
Did a good job.
yeah, absolutely. And then we see Lain on the train, and I think our first kind of indication of something odd going on here, as she's looking out, and she says, "It's so loud. Why don't you all just shut up?" And everyone just kind of looks up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not loud.
Yeah.
Like it's
we don't hear it being loud, but obviously it was.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, here's where things start to connect, because what have we been seeing? What is she looking at? She's looking at the wires. Right? And so clearly there's something going on there that actually she's hearing something starting to come into her head. And then she goes to school, and then she starts having her first sort of weird moments. Where where her classmates start getting fuzzy, and everything gets just really weird for a little bit, and she's clearly having some mental issues.
Did you notice on the teachers writing out equations and stuff?
Yeah.
It's like math class. But if you look, it's like print parentheses
Yes.
C something or other.
Yes,
It's all
yeah.
programming
Yeah,
language.
it's Pascal.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not like standard geometry.
Oh, no.
or trigonometry or
and
calculus.
and we'll get to this later.
Eh.
In episode 4, I think it was, Taro says, let's see here.
Print.
He says, wait, what grade are you in? Oh, you're in 8th grade. Well, the schematic of those motherboards are in your 8th grade, textbooks. So just use that as a reference.
For upgrading the Navi.
Yeah, so it's like, wait,
Yeah.
motherboard schematics are being taught as common core, to Japanese students, in this world. Clearly not present day, present time.
But it says it is present.
Confusing. But yes, this is the Pascal programming language. If you want to go real deep, Pascal is named
inputting
after
that.
Pascal is named after Blaise Pascal, who has Pascal's wager around the existence of God. Right? So again, it's a leap, but it's interesting. I think this is more here just to say, they're teaching 8th graders programming in class. Isn't that amazing? But yes.
I think given how it shows up, I think it's probably more likely the existence of God issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like there's going to be a very small segment of people that are going to notice that it's a programming language.
Yep.
There's going to be a minuscule segment of people that's Pascal. And it's not in there enough in broadcast for you to do anything about it. It's only in this iteration that we can go back on the DVD or streaming, stop it and be like, hey. You know what I mean? So it's like, you could have just put up 1 + 2 + 3. You know what I mean? So it's definitely something deeper involved in that.
And yes, Matt.
For those of you in Chatland, if your head is already hurting, that's okay.
This is only episode 1.
And Matt points out, so back in 1998, there was no wireless. You know, there was no wireless internet.
Right, yeah.
Anything internet related would have been going over physical wires, physical cables.
AOL connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Copper cables
AOL
and
discs.
the 24 baud modems. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's look at, for a second, just kind of point out what happens when Lain walks into the classroom. She just walks over to her desk, sits down, and she's not interacting with anyone. Alice is comforting Julie, or Jury, depending on your version.
Yeah.
Because Julie got an email from Chisa, the dead girl, and she's kind of freaked out. And obviously, Julie's a little sensitive. Reika is not. And so Alice immediately walked right over to Lain and is like, hey, and I don't think this is anything more than all the other students have filtered in. Another student has filtered in, and Alice is like, hey, do you know what's going on? But you get this interesting dynamic where Alice is just very open, very pragmatic, just, hey, what's going on? No, are you okay? No, we haven't talked before, whatever. Whereas Lain is just kind of like, human talk? What? Hey, I don't... She's clearly not in there.
Her conversation skills are not polished,
No.
one might say.
I have a question for you and folks in chat. Is Lain potentially on the spectrum? I'm not sure. I can see arguments for, I can see arguments against. And again, not necessarily that they intended that, but could you interpret it that way?
Yeah, I think you could definitely interpret it that she was on the spectrum, or if you're, it kind of depends on which slope you're going down and what theory you're kind of thinking about what might be going on.
Yeah, that's
Unpack that sentence.
Right, yeah.
Right. Unpack that sentence.
Yeah.
So the current, ski slope I'm on is, and who knows, I might hit a tree or branch somewhere else.
Don't Sonny Bono on us. Oh,
Oh.
Too soon. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I got the share song in my head just now. Anyway.
I got you, babe.
What? No, and it's to me it was kind of like not so much as a spectrum, being on the spectrum, as she is not used to talking to people because she is not a person per se. And in terms of just like being a construct of sorts, and being an independent, sentient construct. This isn't just like somebody's controlling her or something.
Right.
It just her, and then kind of like having to, like in the first 4 episodes, I feel like it's a lot of it of her adapting. At first,
data collection.
Data collection, adapting. And then of course, I kind of didn't hit the tree, but the branch hit me on the way down when they're talking about the club scene, which we'll get to. I grazed my head, where they show a picture of her that looks like a girl, her. And then I'm kind of like going, oh no, all right, I'm gonna have to rethink.
We'll get to that.
And that's why, having seen all the way through Lain, that's an interesting perspective, because at the time watching it, and even this time, I suspended what my thought was of her general mental state, because I was trying to wrap my mind around everything else that was happening. so that it was more like, okay, welcome to the NHK. She could be a hikikomori.
Right? True.
There's a good solid chance, and then she's socially functional, but she's not, gregarious by any means. And that she's not entirely isolated, but she's comfortable where she is.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need to interact with other people, and then the world starts to revolve a little bit more where she has to.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's interesting to now that you said that. It's like, I still don't know, because now I know what happens by the end. And it's like, geez, I don't. Wow.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. And I agree. I don't think I would classify her as being on the spectrum or spectrums, depending on how you define it. She's just very shy. She's very introverted and so forth. But I think you could, it would be interesting to kind of go back through and kind of collect data on that, kind of look at it from that lens.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, definitely quiet. And Lain has no idea what's going on. I have to say, I had a friend once, the friend who became a fan through this, and I tried contacting him once, like over the course of a week, and he wasn't returning his calls. So finally, I left a voicemail for him. I queued up this episode of Lain, and left a voicemail with my phone set up to Alice going, "You really should check your email at least once a day,
Yeah.
And he called me back and was like, "Good, that's nice." Anyway. So we're starting to get the personalities. So one thing to note, so Lain starts having some issues here. Note she has not written a dang thing in her notebook.
Yeah.
She's just really spacing out at this point. And she has this moment where this smoke comes out of her hand. So, during this panel at Otakon, one of the panelists said, or one of the audience members said, "I've been doing some research, and apparently if somebody is dying, and I mean that, like, they're losing oxygen, whatever, they might come back, but their brain is afraid they're dying. They'll often have what's called a death dream. So they'll have the brain will just sort of throw all of this data at them, and they'll have this very intense experience. And one of the things they often report is this image of smoke coming out of their hands, or their fingers. This imagery connects right to that. And so she said, is that what's going on here? Is the entire series just Lain's death dream? And the creator said, if you think that is up to you, and that is totally a valid interpretation. We're not going to say you're wrong.
And that's when you just, like, your hand just kind of goes up towards the creator. No, I need closure.
Listen, don't make me come up there and slap you.
Exactly. But if nothing else, this is definitely telling us that Lain is having difficulty connecting with the real world.
And that's what I wrote down, that Lain's finger smoke. That's just my interpretation. As the first concrete stages of her delusional state. But that's again just I was watching this being like, this is the first sort of like oddly Lain specific thing going on that she's kind of like, and then we're all going, what?
Right.
So
now good.
When I was kind of watching it, and that and so many other things that happened, and I just kind of my thought process was basically just like I didn't know about the death dreams or any of this stuff, and my mind trying to understand why there's smoke coming out, and clearly there's a disconnect, and my disconnection would manifested in myself and just going, no. And this is the point when you're, as a first time watcher, by the way, for those of you who, so many of you have already seen this, but as a first time watcher, this is one of those things where it's just like, this is the moment, this is actually the moment that I said to myself, you're going to be watching this again.
Yeah. There's a lot here.
there is.
And so Lain goes back home, and we get to see her family life. Oof. Yeah. And this is something that actually I did not notice the first time I watched this. Let's see if we get to see. Yeah. We see her living room, which again bathed in this glorious afternoon light, which is empty and pretty freaking huge.
And sterile.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very, very sterile. Almost laboratory-like sterile.
Almost. And then you go into her room, which contains a bed, a desk, a chair, and a bunch of stuffed animals. No art on the wall. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah, and the bed's not even like
Really?
They've like kind of gone the compromise between a futon on the floor and a Western bed by having a mattress and box springs on the floor. Like, wow.
So
how institutional.
Yeah.
So what got me was that like I got through all that and I was just like, okay, it's kind of a weird, very monochromic room.
Yeah.
And then, but the thing that really stood out to me was she's sitting at her desk, and finally at one point she turns the navy around. Mm-hmm. It's already facing away from her.
Yeah.
It's already all this, and it's on the corner. It's kind of like she has to move stuff out of the way, bring it back. And
little stuffed animals, little kid stuff.
And but it's turned away, like she doesn't want it. Like what is this? I don't want it. But then she feels compelled, of course, to use it, and then things happen.
So let me ask you all, what might this look like? Like, what would be a rational explanation for her having a room like this? To me, it looks a little bit like the room that you give a recently adopted daughter.
I was thinking it looked like a room of somebody who's been institutionalized but isn't dangerous to themselves.
Mm-hmm. To me, and hence my going down this slope, was that this was something for her to fill this, because the way that the father interacted with her, which is very much hands off, figure it out kind of thing going on. And almost as if they're watching her serial experiments later. Watching her see what decisions are being made and how and what those might mean.
It's definitely not a lived-in room.
No.
It is a very, very straightforward room, and also oddly, and again, one of those things where you don't really notice until you look at it, that everything's on one side of the room. Later we see other shots and this is it. The room is empty otherwise. Everything is shoved up there, so it is very weird. But it is
her desk surface where she moves things off is the sole lived-in space.
Yep.
It's got like some stuffed animals. It's got the clock on it. It's got some piles of papers. It shows like there's been some activity at a time before now. So her growing up, these are little things that are stages of development moving forward to the point we are now.
Yeah.
Her stuffed animals in the window, she has apparently some on the floor between the bed and the window because there's shadows. The ones that are in the window are behind a shade, and at different points, they are either facing, the shade is up and they are facing into the room, or they are facing outwards of the room. So it's, it's like, there's a lot of weird things going on here, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one seeing this, right?
Definitely. And so she logs in, and again clearly has no idea how to use the computer, just stumbling her way through. But it also clearly a very advanced computer. This is not
voice recognition,
an 8088 IBM PC.
A TRS 80.
Yeah. That was a little older, but yeah. And then we get. And this is just before the commercial break. User Lain has new email from Chisa Yamoda. The line is, "Hello, how are you?"
I'm dead.
Okay, all right. That's an interesting opening line from a dead girl.
Yeah, because how do you respond to that? I'm fine. How are you? Oh, wait. Yeah.
I'm still alive. Thank you for
Right.
asking.
Well, and speaking of that, you'll note that Lain actually talks back to the screen. Like, she's getting an email, and then partway through, she goes, "Why did you die? Like, what are you doing?" Like, she's expecting an answer from in the middle of the email. That's not how that works. But yeah, she gets this email from Chisa saying, I'm dead, but I'm still alive on the other side, which isn't creepy at all.
Which, when this happens,
One
this
of
is still
us. One of
Yeah.
us.
God, this is still years away from which. It was funny because when I saw Lain, it made me think of stories that the first time I'd seen Lain, stories I had seen where people had surprised their families after they had passed by like ordering stuff.
Oh,
from the
wow.
company
Yeah.
that would show up like a year after they had passed, or to set up an email to be sent.
Right.
on a
Yeah.
date that was like, "I miss you, I love you, I'm hope you guys are doing okay." And it's like, it's funny because I'm not entirely sure that technology was there at this time to do a delay email.
I don't think so. No.
They had internal email accounts and stuff, so I don't discount it couldn't be possible.
Right.
But I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah. No. This was definitely not a thing back then. And you get it very interesting. And so Lain goes running to talk to her parents about it. Yeah, about
They're
that.
warm and helpful.
That wonderfully painful conversation or non-conversation, I should say, at the table, where they're just sitting there doing their thing.
Sort of like two lab researchers and their assistant working with their experimental.
Almost. Yeah.
The sister at least seems to be the one that's sort of genuinely interested in what's going on. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mika definitely. Mika is the true tragedy of this show. Because Mika is the one character who does not get involved, who is just dragged along with everything else and gets screwed over. It is a real shame. But yeah, not a lot of love and attention going on here.
Mom and Dad aren't winning Mom and Dad of the Year.
No.
That's for damn sure.
And Dad's watching that creepy headless Victorian thing.
So let's go there. One of the things that actually...
Thanks, Steve.
Sorry.
One of the things that I really appreciate about this show is that, and that really sets it apart from other shows, is the hardware actually looks like real computer parts.
Yeah.
It is not just, white circles that plug into other circles and make computers. It's like, that's a PCI card. Like, that's really, really cool.
Hey, that guy's got a Sound Blaster card.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Totally.
Is that a Wave audio card?
Oh, man. Sound Blaster 16?
Yeah.
And so he's come home, and he has all of his monitors set up. And yes, by the way, that's what a CRT monitor looks like.
Looked like
Kim
I got
Walker.
two of them, and I got two Super VGAs downstairs in the basement. They look
Wow.
exactly like
Yep.
that.
There we
And
go.
they do the same thing. So when he turns it on, you hear that
Yep.
kind of weird noise. I'm like,
Yep.
I know that sound.
Absolutely. And so he immediately sets up his computer, and we get again not Dad of the Year, as he is focused more on his computers than on his own daughter.
And she's wearing an adorable.
Oh,
bear
yes,
outfit,
this
and
is-
who would not love that.
Lain in the bear outfit is one of the cutest things in anime. Let's just be honest. As she's trying to talk to her father, and doesn't really happen. And he's just fascinated with his computers. Now, what is interesting in this scene is, as he's just sort of talking, he does say, "By the way, people on the real world and the wire, they're connected somehow. You should make friends on there. It'd be good for you." I was like, "Oh wow, that's it. Like that's the start of everything." Like he is the one actually pushing her to go online and do that thing.
Well, if you notice when he's
which-
launching his system, he's launching the ISO Surface Mapper 3D geometry module.
Yep.
And I didn't get a chance to look up what Think Blue Count 1 Toe 2. I didn't get a chance to look that up, but it's like, okay, so we have some weird, like, funky dimensional shadows. We have some very sterile spaces. We have some really odd kind of things going on. And here you have somebody setting up a, for its time, fairly damn advanced rig.
Yes.
And he's launching a 3D mapper and modeler module.
Yep.
Huh. Like, maybe you could, I don't know, make an alternate reality. Or
something like that. Yeah. We'll get there.
Run CAD and design your new house. Well, that too, but not necessarily.
Jonesy pointed out, and I don't think I'll be able to find a good screen grab of this once he logs in. No, not really. It's actually a bunch of Yoshihashi Abe artwork on his screen. So a bunch of stuff from like his portfolio. Probably that notebook that he submitted. He probably scanned a bunch of that. So a bunch of the like the characters and so forth are clearly like Abe sketches that they just sort of slapped onto the screen. That's kind of fun.
That's funky.
But yes, so we have all this going on as he's just saying, "Oh yeah, we'll upgrade your Abe and you'll get online and you'll make friends." That's a good thing to do, right?
Not in today's standards.
Well,
back in 2001.
Yeah. And then we have the second train scene. Yay. Where Lane's in the train, there's a sudden bang, and the train operator, of course, says, "We apologize for the inconvenience. The train is paused."
Which is code for.
Yeah. So Lane sees the blood on the wires, and she has a bit of a freak out. Lain suddenly is out in the middle of a street, watching people walk by, and then she's in a black void, and then she's in her room or her house, in the empty space, and then she sees the wires, and then she's seeing the train and the girl. So, I think what's happening here, Lain is clearly triggered in some way by deaths going on around her. Right? Every time a death happens, like she gets weirded out and something happens. And she is not watching that suicide. She is watching that person's emotional experience of the suicide. And I say that because the girl is hit by the train on the front, but the blood is traveling down the cables. So her body could not have gotten up there. It was clearly a different method. Right. But she's getting a sense of what's going on with this girl, and this girl is clearly just out of it. Like, she's just walking on the... Right. I mean, when I say out of it, she's deliberately walking onto the train line. Like, she's doing this, but she's just standing there and letting it happen to her.
And again, it's just me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what anybody else thinks about this, but the pulling it forward, the blood on the wire that's dripping down, that there is something about the nexus between the wired and the reality. There's the real blood, and that's a real wire, but sort of kind of an indication about how this interaction is obviously causing severe problems. But that's what I thought when I saw the wire with the blood dripping down. I'm like, wow, the wire, it's causing real world things.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting. It's like, it's more than just the blood on the wire. It's the wired and the blood. I'm like, I'm like, okay. Yeah. But again, that's just me.
No, I completely agree, because that's clearly what's happening.
No, that's what I saw,
no, you couldn't be more wrong. Damn it.
John, you ignorant... No. So one thing that I saw, or I think I saw, and maybe you guys can clarify this for me, because I'm not sure that I actually saw it.
One of those shows.
She's on the train and she's looking up, and I don't know if it's this scene or the first time she's on the train. And the way that they make the eyes, and things like that,
the pupils,
and there was one particular scene where it felt like one eye was normal, and the other one was like she was concussed. That was, and the other one was just, wide open. It just kind of seemed weird to me. She was looking and she was looking, out at the wires, and
Mhm.
you heard the
Yeah.
whole,
That's not it.
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that was
So
earlier on.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
okay,
I
wasn't
noticed the
imagining it.
pupil thing. I wrote that down too. It's like the various distinct points where
Yeah.
their pupils are tiny,
There we go.
and then other distinct
Yeah.
points where their pupils are huge. And it's like,
In fairness, Lane was made on the cheap. Uh, so there are certainly points where it's like, oh, somebody just screwed up. On the other hand, we are watching the Blu-ray remaster of Serial Experiments Lane, where Ueda, the original executive producer and one of the creators, and the art director went back, rewatched the show, checked every shot, made notes, and went back and fixed all the animation mistakes that they could. So there's all of these, a whole bunch of changes made in this. One of the reasons it looks so bloody clear and crisp is because they went back and they like color corrected a bunch of the shots. We'll talk about that later, about stuff that was very muddy to begin with. That said, I agree. I think this looks deliberate, like there's something weird going on. Also, it should be pointed out, in this shot, the wires are overlaid on Lane.
yeah, across her forehead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's across your forehead. Yep, mind. Yep, totally. So I think that is absolutely symbolism that they're throwing in there.
Well, and it's certainly too. It's like you think about the fight or flight response and how your pupils react to things.
Yep.
That at the various points where her pupils are just absolutely tiny versus things that are happening and her pupils are huge, and it's like, okay, so we're getting some reaction out of her in some circumstances, and then in others where you think there would be, there aren't.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so she responds very differently to different things than what you would expect other people to respond as. I'm like,
Exactly. And we'll get later how some of the other characters also react in ways you wouldn't quite expect. But yeah. And then Lane wakes back up in class. Note, it's not the same class as before. So they're not just jumping back and saying, oh, that was all a dream.
yeah.
She's just having this moment in English class, actually, because you get to see the English sentences helpfully diagrammed on the chalkboard. I'll see if I can find that on here. For those of you who may remember, probably no one in here can remember, no one in the chat room can remember when they used to teach this. To diagram your sentences.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And here's your direct object, your indirect object, your predicate nominative.
I can go into the whole thing about that.
I hated it. Terrible.
I did dig into this. This does appear to just be kind of standard English teaching phrases, right? Where these just sentences that you write down. Like there's nothing obvious about that. Nothing about mother cooking in the show that I can tell. It's just there because it's fodder for Lane's brain reinterpreting that into what was it? Come with me, I think, was the translation of the different words in the chalkboard.
Well, to say, because that's actually a line from a Baudelaire poem.
Oh.
That No, I'm just.
I was like,
Your Google went in very different places than my Google did. Yeah. I believe it, though.
I know I'm about to get clubbed to death after
yeah.
this. Like, don't make up stuff.
And-
Like, sorry.
And you're absolutely right. We have a blue shadow. So as Lane is walking home, the shadows are no longer red splotches; they're blue splotches.
Yeah.
As she's walking home. So things are definitely different. And then Chiso walks by. It's like, if this episode weren't weird enough,
Yeah.
Chiso shows up. It should also be pointed out, this is something that you kind of blink and you miss it. She walks by, and then, and folks who are watching this, watching that upper corner, Lane continues walking, and then she disappears.
Yeah.
She just pops out, because she's not quite synchronized with this reality yet. She pops back in. We have a little bit of a conversation. And then, is this where we get the?
Well, I think
yeah.
too, where Chisa shows up.
Mm-hmm.
That's this maybe sounds too simplistic, but the red splotches are Lane's intersection with reality, and the blue splotch of occurs when Chisa is intersecting with Lane's.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's keep on looking for that. That's an interesting connection. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, because I
totally makes
wondered.
sense.
I'm like, why did it go blue?
Yeah.
I'm like, well.
Yeah, it's blue everywhere. That's true.
Chisa
Yeah.
I'm like,
And then, so I just want to call out when Chisa disappears, she glows and then, like, turns into, like, DNA. Like, we have this weird sort of ribbons out. Remember, they had to hand animate that. That's not a special effect. They had to draw every frame of that. Holy smokes. And I say that not just to call attention to effort, but also that they're clearly trying to say something is going on here. Like, they could have just had her fade away, that kind of stuff, but clearly strange things are happening here. And as we see later, these folks who are crossing back and forth are doing so in specific ways.
Yeah. You could have easily, like we've seen in other anime, had the gust of wind hit Lane in the eye, and she turns around, oh, she's not here.
Yeah.
No, they went with a whole different thing.
Exactly, yep.
It's like, so they're making a point.
Very much. Whereupon we get to the end of the episode, and this to be continued with the blue and red B. That is the logo of BOS, which was an alternate operating system spun off from Apple way back in the day. One of Apple's chief product people left Apple to spin up a whole new operating system company, and it lasted for 5 years or so as a startup, and eventually sort of folded. But that's the thing. That's what that is for. I don't know why all that connects into everything, but that is actually the logo of that company. Very odd.
Interesting.
Then we get our wonderful fall back asleep ending credits sequence with Lain just curled up in her technological womb, so to speak. Which I'm not going to show you too much of because you two might get angry at me. It sounds like it's Chisa who is speaking in that scene, for what it's worth. Asking. Let's see here. Thank you, Gungafago. Good to hear that. Oh man, yeah. The VHS of Lain is not the way to see it.
Wow.
That was a very muddy transfer. It was hard to tell anything going on. That was rough. So here's the thing.
Wow. Yeah.
We are 1 hour into our analysis, and we just got to the end of episode 1.
Yeah, the first 23 minutes. Woo! 13 to go. No, 13 total. So.
Yeah, 12 to go.
To go.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We were originally going to go through episodes 1 through 4 here. I'm looking at my notes. Are you guys good with going through episode 2? And maybe stopping there? Or do you want to pause here? Because I have a little less to talk about with episode 2. But up to you guys.
Say I just my notes are all conscious stream of not divided between episode 1 and 2 per se. So it just goes on.
Much like Lain.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. My mind just keeps going. Yes.
Well, the practicality is we have to get through this.
But it's true. Yes. I mean, we can certainly do more of this in future. We don't have to only do four talks. But yeah, let's at least do episode 2. Everyone's calling for episode 2. Let's do it. Let me pull up the video for that.
Let me get my brain
somewhere.
Back
There we go.
There we go.
Absolutely. There we are. Okie doke. Cool. So, same opening. One thing Lain does not do is change its opening or its any of that kind of interesting stuff. And then we will jump into layer 2. I believe it's Friends? I'm not sure.
Sort of Psyche?
Psyche is later.
Psyche's
that's
third.
Yeah, because that's where you start getting the Pishuke chip. Okay, Yeah, we get a little bit of a recap in the sense that we get a lot of the same imagery from the opening one, and why aren't you here? Girls. That's right. Layer 2 girls.
Girls. That's it.
Time.
By the way, the little whisper voice that announces the episode layers and names. That is one of the
creepy enough.
Yeah, that is one of the default text-to-speech voices on the Mac. So back in the day, it had text-to-speech and had a bunch of things, and that was one of the voices you could choose. And they're like, this is creepy. Let's just record all of these in this text-to-speech thing.
Wow.
I need to find that somehow and use that for my
voicemail.
bad robotic theater.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, I had this set to say some things to me back in the day. Just welcome home, Brett.
No.
Very odd.
Turn on 2 small red LEDs.
Yeah, exactly.
In the room. Oh no! Run away!
So we jump into Siberia. This is where we first get to Club Siberia.
And that's the club, not the location in Russia.
Correct.
Right.
Or the book.
Or the book.
Or the book.
So Siberia was a book by I'm trying to remember. It was also like a young adult series. Doug Rushkoff. Published in 1994. It discusses, I'm quoting Wikipedia here, many different ideas revolving around technology, drugs, and subcultures. Talks about online culture and the idea of the global brain and Gaia theory, which watchers of Lain may have recognized. So bits and pieces of that are pulled in later on in the show. Whereupon our nameless person gets a little something from the the woman here in the gas mask.
Oh, it's that kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Great. And he has his little bottle of root beer there, or Coke, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a distinctly.
It's
Coke
just
shit.
pop.
Yeah, it's Coke.
It's just
yeah,
pop.
it's pop. There we go. Yeah. And I love he gets this weird little pill and then cuts it open.
Yeah, to inspect.
Yeah, he pulls this razor out. You're like, ah! And he cuts it open to inspect this and to see this tiny little spiky thing, which, as you do, you immediately put in your mouth.
Yeah, because that's gonna be.
Sharp
fun.
objects.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ow! Ow!
We just swallow this thing full of needles. It'll be
Yeah.
awesome.
Didn't my mother tell me not to do that once?
What better symbol of drug abuse than
Yeah, right.
than this? And so he takes it, and everything slows down.
I'm part of the Speed Force now.
And you're like, oh, that's going to be great for him. And so we cut back to the humming of the wires and Lain now on her computer, starting to understand things, starting to do things. Mika comes in, as you were mentioning. Mika's like, what this is weird. Lane's going to be late for school, which can't do that in Japan.
No.
And so out she
you
comes.
don't have an A code to help you.
Right, exactly, yes. Sorry! And so Lain comes out. I should point out one thing about Lain, because they're using the same animation. From what I understand, the first episode of Lain was made as basically an experimental film to show to the production committee. Basically, the staff said, we want to do this show. The production committee said, I don't think it's possible. I can't conceive of this thing. So they got basically just skeleton cash to put together episode 1 to show back to the production committee to say, here's what the show is going to be. And then from that, they commissioned the rest of the show. So one of the reasons why
They drugged the committee.
Yeah,
to
pretty
agree
much.
to this. Oh, cool.
Lain seems fine. Lain is great. All hail Lain.
Yeah, while you're watching this, guys, here, try the Kool-Aid. What do I do?
So yeah, it's one of the reasons the first episode is a little wonky at times. Unlike the rest of the show.
Never gets wonky.
Yeah. And so she comes outside, and we get our first glimpse of one of the people I affectionately call the gargoyles.
That was so creepy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to look up because they named one of them, and I forget...
Well, the blondie dude she first encounters, for a split second when he's standing there kind of at the pole, I'm like,
Right.
is that Van Gogh?
Oh,
Weird,
yeah.
Van Gogh
Nice.
look? I'm like, the madness of Van Gogh. The hair is
Yeah,
about right.
there
The
we
facial
go.
features are about right. I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
can't
don't like
possibly
this.
be. Like, no. But it's, given its lane, it's more than possible.
Wikipedia simply calls them the Men in Black, which is quite accurate.
Yes.
I call them the gargoyles. That is the thing in, I think, Snow Crash, where folks go around with technology like strapped to their heads that give them like supervision and super audio and so forth and so on. And so it's very much the same idea. You see later. So she runs away from him because, creepy stranger standing on your street. That's what you do.
Yeah, like down from
you
your
know, so-
house, like not even far away from your
Yeah.
house, like within
I mean, far
vision
away-
of your door. Like,
And when he looks at you from behind the column, and he's just like,
Yeah,
just like that look, and you're just like, God, I'm over 6 feet, and I'd be like, nah, I'm just gonna walk a little bit more quickly down the street here.
yeah, have you never seen
Yeah.
a spy film? You're looking at reading a
I know,
newspaper,
right.
smoking a cigarette, acting nonchalant. No, you're just,
Nope.
I'll hide behind this pole. Oh, you'll not.
And again, this is your first hint that the Men in Black are definitely operating under different rules. They have a different remit than most of the other characters we see. So she runs off, and at school she then starts to talk to Alice and Julian Reka.
What was the Wolf Brigade? What was the film?
Jinro.
The when they come up with the eye gear.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff, it made me think of
Yeah,
Jinro. I'm like, oh,
definitely, yeah. And that was,
Well.
there's probably some, visual pulling there. Although when jeez, sorry. Reka's eyes in this shot are rough. But there's so the animation in this shot between Lain and the girls. The girls just kind of look like they're drawn by third graders some of the time. It's just what happens sometimes during animation production. And Lain has a conversation with them. And they're like, oh, we saw you at the club. Wait, no, it's not her. She can be at the club. I'm like, what's going on? And you'll notice it's not just Lain just being passive and observing. She's actually responding to their comments.
Yeah.
But they talk about having seen Lain at Siberia, which is quite odd. Lain does not seem like very much of a clubbing girl.
No. For this remarkable club that has everybody from 8 to 18.
Yes!
Or 28. It's hard to tell what the
Yeah,
ages
that's
are, but
true.
it's
Also-
still a little weird.
Also, it's anime. Like, what does age even mean?
Yeah.
What does age mean? 8 years old is the same thing as 25.
Pretty much. Because the 8-year-old is actually 3,000 years old.
Yeah. I'm your teacher. I'm only 2 foot tall, but I'm actually 50.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and so obviously some weird stuff is happening. But Alice is being Alice and sticking up for Lain, and telling them not to bug her, and off they go with this weird thing about Lain apparently being at this club, which makes no sense. Now we get some of the classic Lain info dump, which Lain likes to do, where they literally would just have a narrator tell you things. And just sort of basically read a Wikipedia article, which is ironic because Wikipedia didn't exist yet, I don't think. That's interesting. Wait a second.
Wikipedia.
No.
You had Encarta at the time, which was
Right.
a particularly
No,
popular
I'm just
DVD or CD-ROM set.
on this screenshot. They're saying that Genentech is investigating this antibody in phase 2 That sounds familiar. Where have I heard Genentech before? According to Google, well, there's multiple Genentechs. The one off Wikipedia was founded in 2009. It sounds like it must be from a movie or something. Sorry, that's a side thing. But yeah, we learned that Excella is basically a cyber drug, electronic thing that goes into your head and activates something in your brain, basically.
Sets off your pituitary gland or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then there's this
Adrenal gland.
Yeah.
To make you feel like you're actually thinking and experiencing it faster.
Which, by the way, the science does, from what I've read, does bear that out, that you can actually like accelerate your thought processes to where you are actually like processing the information much faster. You can't do it for long, but you can like speed up the brain temporarily, and like it's not that you just imagine it happening, like you are actually like processing at that speed.
It's called speed.
Well, yeah.
Amphetamines. Why Johnny can't blink.
Yeah, exactly.
Methamphetamines, they'll speed you up, burn you the hell out, and they'll speed you up.
Yeah, there we go. So Lane's in class, and there's this buzz of her cell phone. And again, 1998, 14-year-olds having cell phones.
Well, also the fact that we're at a very interesting, tipping point. Lane has never like displayed any kind of cellular prowess prior to that moment, and all of a sudden she's getting a phone call or a text message from Alice.
And this is the thing: is that she looks scared for a second, and I realize this time she thinks it's coming from Chisa.
Yeah.
I was thinking she was just worried about getting caught.
Well, yeah, and that too potentially.
But yeah, this certainly would make a lot more sense to be much more fearful of Chisa. It's like, talking to the dead again.
The dead girl, the dead girl.
Yeah. Not in class, please. Just not in class. And then
if you're going to haunt me, can you make it like after school?
And you have Lane's little mailer.
Water buckets in the hall.
Yeah. But at dusk maiden of amnesia. We'll go to the club room. You can haunt me there. We'll have a conversation. I'll find your skeleton in the basement. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Alice is inviting Lane to Siberia. Lane begs off, basically, which is kind of interesting because it doesn't work.
I just love the description of Siberia from the press. It's a hip place for young people who like computers. Wow, that sounds so
1990.
Yeah. Sounds so like something I'd never want to be in. But yeah.
And I love the graphics on their phones. It's
so
futuristic.
Which
it is.
Right.
In that period of time.
Totally.
These would have all been like grayscale, like LCD screens. They wouldn't have
Absolutely.
Any of this,
It's a great point.
Think.
No. And again, especially for a kid's phone.
Yeah.
Geez, this is pretty impressive stuff.
I got the unified theory.
Yeah.
Is was actually an advert before its time.
Okay.
Saying, hey, all this stuff is coming down the pike. Be ready.
Invest now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's all a secret pre-ad for the Apple iPhone.
Oh, there you go. So with the OS thing and the ending to be continued.
Yep.
It's also partially sponsored by Coca-Cola because the dude's drinking Coke.
There we go.
Drugs. And obviously the drugs, Pfizer.
There we go.
There we go.
Right, exactly.
I cracked it.
Yeah.
You're on crack?
Well, Lane certainly
do
feels
crack,
like she's
kids.
on crack in the next scene. This scene, like, seriously freaked me out the first time I watched it. Where Lane's going down the hall and the, like,
the girl.
weird pseudo-human creatures come out of the walls at her. And Lane is clearly, like, having issues.
Bit of psychological stress.
Bit of psychological stress. And
Yeah,
then
just a tad.
some girl shows up. This is not Chisa.
Yeah.
No glasses. It appears to be the girl from the train.
Train.
Yeah. That was what I thought it was.
Because of the her facial expression. And then again, they had to hand animate them passing through, and the girl passing through her. Boy, that's a horrific moment.
Well, the horrific moment was when the dead girl was like,
Yeah,
this is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then you just, I wouldn't stand there and let the thing face. Like, nope. You go,
Yep.
no, go ahead.
Well, and this is one of the key indicators that Lain has clearly been sort of connecting to these deaths in some way. But now there's a hint that those people are connecting back to her. Right? Like Chisa knew her. This girl didn't. But now this girl is connecting back to her again. And there's more of a two-way street than we might otherwise expect. But oh yeah, that'll give you some nightmares right there. Unlike the rest of the show.
Flowers.
Yeah, exactly. And so Lain comes home, gets a computer shipment. Nothing too remarkable in this, other than the fact that there's a great line of dialogue in here, and I would love to know why they show you this packing slip, because they show it to you before she signs it, and they show it to you after she signed it, and I don't know why. Because that seems very deliberate for this kind of a show.
Right.
And you can see, and so right there next to, just to the right of Navi, that's her signature there. And again, I don't know what's going on there. At first I thought she didn't sign it because the blank space over here, but that's her signature over on the left under the that GXZ code. So again, don't know. Probably something.
Any side-by-side comparisons to figure out if there's any data that's been changed?
I pulled it up. That's a good question. I don't know.
As I say, because it could, again, her in the hallway. It's not Chisa, so it's not a direct connection. It's a person that died somewhere around Lain at the time.
Yep.
So Lain's sliding further off the reality train and not train, and more into this altered universe. Is the getting of the new Navi, the more powerful Navi, another step, so that prior to actually physically receiving it, does that slip reflect the pre, and then afterwards does, I don't have any means of being able to compare the two. Is there something about that slip after she accepts that computer that shows another delineation between her move from reality into the cyber, into the wire? You know what I mean? It's like, I wonder if there is anything like that.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I don't know. I mean, you're right, because showing it very obviously, there's a point to be made about it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it now. I don't see anything, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good question. Worth digging in at some point. I'm sure there's a website out there that goes into detail about what's going on there. But there is a wonderful moment in here, in this thing, where the delivery guy is kind of geeking out over how powerful the computer is. Oh man, I wish I had this computer, my computer. And he's so like one of us. He's so one of these, geeky guys who delivers his computer and kind of wants to strike up a conversation about it. And it being Japan, you can strike up a conversation with a 14-year-old girl in her foyer, and it's not creepy. And
She's so responsible and knowledgeable about it too.
I
and
don't know anything.
well, that's
Okay.
exactly, because she says, I don't know anything about it really, and he goes, you will soon enough. Like, yep, sure enough.
And your life is going down the. Never mind.
You're gonna get connected.
Yeah.
Gotta get yourself connected.
Kind of like your parents connect a little bit here in the hallway.
Yeah.
Stereo MCs.
Yeah.
Stereo MCs. You went there.
Little mind worm for you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
sorry, go ahead.
so, and I think this is getting to the physicality between her parents. that obviously
Which we've
Lain.
seen none of until basically here.
Well, and they show none of to anyone else in the family.
Yeah.
So there's clearly like a bond between the two of them.
It's so passionless.
It's weird, yeah.
They're just standing there, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
and- which makes me wonder if the mother is just really just another
Research.
sentient automaton, like Lane, first version Lane. And
Yeah.
This is the new version.
Yeah.
She's the professor, and he's the research graduate who's working on his thesis. And they're just having a little moment together before they go off and run the Lane program.
Okay, do any of you feel like they are doing shift work? Like Lane comes home, nobody's home, everything's immaculate, right?
Yep.
And then there's times where Lane comes home and either the mother's there or the father's there, but then one of the other shows up again.
Yeah.
And it just
Yep.
feels like, but all the rest of the time it's done. It's almost like the mother's punching in the clock, going, "All right, time to make dinner." There she is, suddenly, and then she's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no like discussions of like, okay, well, take a bath. I've had a bath.
Right.
Your father's gonna go next. Hey, when you go to bed, no. There's like no discussion about bedtime. There's no like, hey, going off to sleep. See you guys. Good night. Are you some inside? No, nothing.
No.
It's like,
And granted, there are definitely families like this. Right?
dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I do wonder if there is an aspect of this show that is like every other anime shows a happy, functional family where everybody is nice and gets along. And we're going to show the other side of, that isn't always the case. And to be clear, anime has a certain social aspect where anime series are made by adults for, kids and teenagers. And so there's a tendency to present as positive of an experience as possible in terms of how people should be, which is not always reality.
Well, what about the Earth Defense Force family there?
Exception. Definitely a strong
I
exception.
was gonna say,
Oh!
yeah, they don't exactly have the greatest put together family, but
I was about to blurt out a line, but that would be a spoiler.
Oh my!
And it's incredibly sad. But yes.
there.
Yeah, no.
Let's not be sad about something else. Let's be
Exactly,
sad about
yes,
something
right.
else. Oh, here we go.
And so Lane, really wants your father to work on it, and his glasses start to. And we don't see his eyes anymore. When she's like, "Oh, can we do it now? Can we hook it up now?"
He's like all Gendo and Kari.
Yep, he goes all Gendo on this. By the way, this is one of the things they fixed. Getting these reflections, the glowy reflections, was always mismatched in the original anime. They weren't quite on top of the glasses because they were a special optical effect. So if you went back and watched the original ones, they'd be slightly 3 pixels to the left, or whatever, and so forth.
That's fine.
So they had to go back and adjust it. There were some shots where it was literally half on. It was really bad. And again, people were like, "Oh, what does that mean? It's not really connected." No, we just couldn't get the optical printer working.
It meant we didn't have the budget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
It
so,
means what you think you want it to mean. Shut up.
and here's your evidence for this all being a secret iPhone ad. Copland OS was one of the names for Mac OS. Yes,
Jeez.
that was a code name for Mac OS back in the day. So yeah, and so Lane gets all nice and set up with her new computer and her thing. Wow, she has a lot of closets. I just realized that. That's interesting. Don't know what that means.
Well, when you got a lot of skeletons in your closet.
Exactly, yeah. I believe it. And so Lane gets, the classic problem that so many geeks have, that, they have a whole new computer, but a social obligation. Dang it.
Oh, terrible.
How
you notice when she gets the new computer set up, Lane's room has lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
It's like the lights
So
on.
it's not just a dark room anymore.
Yeah.
There's lights going on.
It's almost like, a light has been turned on in her life.
Yeah.
And she's starting to go somewhere. And so she decides to go
Crazy
out
town.
clubbing in that outfit.
Because that's exactly what we do with 14-year-old girls. Oh, where are you going out there? Oh, just clubbing.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, keep the ecstasy down a little bit, okay?
And I love how when she's walking around, she's walking past like a drunk guy and like a guy and a girl who are like leaning up next to a thing. Like, this is not the nice part of town.
No.
Yeah.
But she
And I
finds
love
her way.
I love the direction she's getting. Now turn left. Do you see the thing? Now turn left again. Oh, okay, there it is. It's like, I was just like, who does that? Nobody.
Right.
How do you know where she is?
Well, they don't have Google.
Yeah.
I know, but
You
they
know?
don't know where Lane is.
And you
They're
don't- and you
inside.
don't
Oh,
have-
we're in the basement. Somehow we know that you're in the corner
Well,
next to the drunk guy.
In fairness, it's probably, I just got out of the Roppongi East
Yeah.
station. How do I get from there? So yeah.
I just turned left at 3rd Street. Where the hell am I?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, do you see the 2 drunk people and the people groping? turn right from there, and you should see it around the corner. Oh, sweet, thanks.
Mhm. And so in she comes, where we get again.
Along with her 8-year-old friend.
Yeah, we do see Taro here and Mew Mew and the rest briefly. Before we get the scene.
Yeah.
So Lain obviously is not enjoying herself, but oh boy. So things start happening real fast as shots ring out and things happen here. And the other girls run. Lain doesn't. She's just kind of stuck there. And she's obviously like in shock.
Yeah.
And this is, again, very natural reaction to what's going on. Just can't really move. This guy has a gun, which, by the way, is in the game. Yes, we'll get to that later. And he starts babbling about how he didn't want to do it. He doesn't know what's going on. And then he recognizes Lain
Yeah.
and starts talking to her directly. And now that little tidbit of, we saw this girl who looked like Lain in Siberia. Maybe something is actually going on there.
Yeah.
And he wants her to get out of his head.
And to not make him do this.
Don't make me do this.
Yeah.
Something's going on. Whereupon Lain walks forward. And as he is freaking out, suddenly we see, for the first time, I would argue. I have there are a bunch of subtitles on this. I have the Spanish was auto-selected. For the first time, we see now what I will call Lain of the Wired. This is the confident Lain. This is the sure of herself Lain. This is, in some ways, the girl from the club earlier.
Yeah. Not Lane we know.
Right. Mm-hmm. Lain has shifted into a different personality, clearly.
Again, pupils dilated.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wide dilated.
Very much so. And we should also note that what triggered Lane's freakouts earlier? Death. We've just had 2 deaths. So there's now the opportunity for whatever this is to actually trigger in Lain, and it actually kind of comes to the fore.
Rich, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
We saw her in the hallway with the girl that died by train.
Right.
And 2 unknowns that sort of shamble down the hallway,
right.
too, that are not distinct people,
Oh.
but are definitely
Okay.
people. Here we have the club murder, and there's 2 dead people on the floor.
Yeah. That was that was in episode 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Is this the precursor? Sort of, like, hey, you see this dead person, you see Chisa,
Right.
you see these
Yeah,
2
that is
things
interesting.
that are not people, but they are obviously people, and now we see 2 dead people.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Let's see. Where do we find there's a hallway scene. 1 second. Let's see if we can find out. So there's the girl. I am playing and trying not to play so Google won't or YouTube won't actually kill me. There's one. There's two. No, there's two. Fog comes in. Three.
That could be him.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
So 2 down on the floor, and then him.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be.
So she doesn't know who they are because she hasn't experienced them yet.
Right.
So she doesn't have a way to form an image of them. How she, although I don't know how she could form the girl on the train because she didn't physically see her.
Yeah.
But she was present at the death, so she, you know, what I mean, you could say, well, there's maybe she saw a newspaper article, something. But these are deaths that are coming. So she's now linked into that. I don't know.
And I mean, given the fact that he is saying, you know, don't make me do it, is there some part of Lane's consciousness that essentially wants 3 more deaths?
Assigned them to be dead.
Exactly. Yeah, and then it's like, oh, okay, him and those 2. Those are going to be the 3 deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Certainly possible.
I just thought it was kind of funky afterwards when I was thinking about that. I'm like, those, wow, okay. She can't envision what they look like because they haven't died yet.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, I like that theory.
The answer is
exactly.
Your answer is more malt liquor?
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
No. So yeah, definitely Lane is in a different spot at this point.
Yeah.
And then he let's see if we can get that. There we go. He points the gun into his mouth. Now, that is also a thing that happens in the game. But it's not him holding the gun.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Oh.
We will later see a shot of Lane having a gun and holding it to her mouth, and that is a direct reference to the game. And in the game, she pulls the trigger. Yeah. So one of the reasons why these images are in the anime, I think, is sort of a reference to those who played the game being like, oh, is that going to happen? Like, is that where we're going with this shot? No, it's a different direction here. I have not played enough of the game to get to those scenes to know how they connect, to be clear. I just know that they exist.
Wow.
But yeah, and down he goes, and Lane gets spattered with the blood, and it just stands there. To be continued. So yeah, stuff has happened. And you're right, Funky Fago is not exactly the same person. It's hard to tell. They're definitely changing some of the character designs around a bit as time goes on. So like the girl you see in the hallway looks kind of like the girl, but there's some like slight differences to like the outfit and so forth. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But yeah,
it could be a production budget issue,
yeah,
or it
absolutely.
could be purposeful obfuscation, if you will.
Very, very possible. But yeah, we have now gotten some ways deeper into the mystery of Lain. And we're starting to see some pieces. I mentioned it on the Discord. This show is a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. If you just pick up different pieces and kind of show them to you, like, here's a piece, here's another piece, here's a different piece. And they're from all over the place.
I have a feeling with this analogy that if this is the 1,000-piece puzzle, we're going to get to the very last piece and it's not going to be there.
No, actually,
this picture will never make sense.
They're only going to show you like 600 of the pieces.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But there will be just enough for you to see the pattern and be able to piece it together. But yeah, no, this is not going to be the entire.
It's going to be choose your
pattern.
own adventure.
Yeah.
Flip to page 210.
It's all
Dementia.
Dementia. Lane got hit in the head with a baseball at a baseball game, and this is all a fevered insanity coma.
It's actually a Taisho period, and she's just...
There we go. And wouldn't that just be easy? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to say, well, it's all for your dream, and so we can all walk away. But
there's no snow globe in this one.
No.
Lane is actually paprika. Damn it.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense.
You might argue sort of Millennium Actress, actually, depending on how. Well, anyway. But yes. So like I said, I do have a theory as to what all is happening here, which I will be advocating. But there are a lot of other ways of looking at this show. So, next question is, we haven't really... When you guys got to this point in the show, what did you think was going on? If anything.
This was my brain at
the first
this point
time
in
or the
show.
second time? Wait a minute, which one?
Yeah.
It was slowing down. It's like, no. The yes is turned to no. No, actually, what I didn't have coherence.
Yeah.
Part of the report. Anyway, so when I got to this point in the show, one of the things, again, the slope down going down, and this is where the beginnings of it, particularly with the mother, showing the mother how emotional she was, or is. I'm thinking that she's, again, just like everybody else. This is what I'm thinking. She's a construct and she's learning. And there's some other components to this. The father is kind of experimenting on her and just seeing, how well she's progressing, what she's going to get to, and those kinds of things. And I think at this point, I had not really thought about any supernatural connections. But then you kind of have to take that into consideration because of what's going on, and how these people are connecting, and between the worlds and whatnot. And that's when, by the end of the second episode, is when I had the first thought of really concrete of that this is about being a construct of learning. Comes from the book Steel Beach by Barley.
Okay.
And where it talks about how long story short, there's an artificial intelligence that's learning, and he comes to a character and says, well, I've discovered something, and the character goes, what? And the AI goes, I'm depressed instead. And so at that point, that's what popped in my head at the end. By the end of the second, I'm just kind of like going, okay, is this a construct? And the construct is trying to figure out emotions, and death is something that cannot be computed yet.
Yeah.
It keeps hitting the wall. So, anyways,
I love that theory. Yep.
Yeah. Again, just a theory.
Yeah, that's right.
Was the thing. I think first time watching it, I just got to this the second episode. I'm like, I'm gonna keep watching this.
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't have any information enough to cope with this, so I'm just gonna keep seeing where this goes.
Yeah.
And the more I think about the artificial construct, the more it makes me think back of the father's doing this stuff. He's got the computer set up. He's doing a 3D graphic modeler. What would happen if the people who are in Lane's world are essentially in a chat room with their avatars, and that they're not dying, they're logging out.
Yeah.
And that's that they're doing it in different ways. It's either dramatic log out or that however it happens. But is this an artificial world that Lane is navigating? That her quote unquote family is trying to sort of inject a normalcy into a complete AI construct, so that it's trying to think it has a real life, and that things are going on like normal, and that people who don't want to be in this world are like, no, I'm noping out of this.
Well, you're wrong.
But it's like the more I've watched it the second time around,
interesting.
It's like, that would be
and that's very interesting, because that's clearly the argument Chisa's making, She just logged out. You know, she still exists. She's fine. She's still, you know, a creature. She is just not physically in the world anymore.
She went to the end of her Animal Crossing island and walked into the lake and drowned because she didn't want to play anymore. And now she's logged out and like, hey, you should log out too and come back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. But no, I love that. Yeah, John, I had a very similar reaction where I was like, boy, this show like throws a curveball at you every 7 minutes. There's something new comes up. There's like, okay. You know.
Well, hence why the first watch through is just like,
yeah.
Now move on to the next episode.
Yeah. Well, and what I liked about this episode too is that by the end of it, you know, episode 1 throws a lot of just kind of weirdness at you. And yes, you do get to see Chisa again and so forth, but you don't know if that's really happening or if, you know, Lane's just imagining it or whatever. Because it's this weird moment where because remember, Chisa just knows Lane through just like seeing her in school and walking past her. So maybe Lane is just imagining that. This Lane is going out with her friends to Siberia. People are recognizing her in Siberia, and there's some connection to what was going on in the past. So it's like, oh, good, the show actually knows what it's doing. And the writer is actually connecting these dots in some way. It'll be a long time before we get any sort of coherent connection here, but at least there's something to look forward to. Gah.
And we're only in episode 2.
Only in episode 2.
2.
There's a lot more to look at here. We will definitely dig into more in episode 3 with
10.
Psyche. Yeah.
Western.
Yeah.
Like
We
got
just-
through episode 2.
Yeah. We are spending twice as long as each episode on that episode. Analyzing it. Because that is what Lane is like. We should watch Boogie Pop Phantom.
Oh God! Why would you do this? I want to live,
hate
man. I want to live.
Why do you hate me?
Wait a minute, the original one or the remake?
The original. I mean,
I'm at least 3 episodes in the
Yeah,
original,
I mean-
so I'm still confused.
yeah.
Going there.
The remake is great too, by the way.
Oh boy.
But so for the. Not going to go down that tangent.
I'm taking the high road on this one.
Exactly. That would be interesting to talk about. But anyway, yeah, I think that will do it for now. So next time we'll come back. We'll start with episode 3.
3.
And we'll get through what we can.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. Yeah, we'll do 3 and 4 next week. And granted, I do have slightly fewer notes on 3 and 4, so I think we can get through that in slightly less time. But we'll see.
Well, I think once you get the groundwork in 1
Yeah.
and 2, that some of the things you're thinking either flesh out or fall
Yeah,
flat.
true.
Right.
So that as you're taking notes, they get fewer because some of what you thought doesn't prove to be real. You know,
Yeah.
or at least you conceptually don't see it.
What
as
is
being
real,
valid.
John?
I don't know. I don't know if this is real.
Is any of this real? Are we all? Is it just a fantasy?
But we're in the present time.
Present day.
Dang.
Present time.
Ah.
Oh dear, the
This is
evil
real.
Muppet
This
at the
is
beginning.
Fantasy.
I love it.
Caught in a landslide, no escape from
from
reality.
And there's probably a Queen reference in this show somewhere.
Oh, probably.
Probably. All right, that'll do it. We're going to take a quick break for just a few minutes. We'll be back to talk about some more modern anime, the latest anime news.
Things that won't make our heads explode.
Exactly.
Hooray!
Quite as much. Quite as much.
Quite as much. Oh no, what'd you find?
right. Welcome back, everyone. I think we have everything. Good. Let's take a moment, a little breather, to talk about how our week's been, anime and other stuff we've been watching. Folks in chat, please let us know how your week's been, what you've been watching lately. Sounds like Jay's been playing Scarlet Nexus. Any questions y'all have for the three of us, please feel free to drop those in chat. Hey, not Amelia, good to see you. John, how about you? What's your week been? Or 2 weeks?
Well, as I shared with you guys before the stream, some little puppy dog of mine must have walked through poison ivy, so I've been fighting my hands swelling.
Ouch.
Been lots of fun. I'm on the other side of it, so now it's opposed to being kind of stingy sensitive. It now feels like I'm wearing a pair of gloves, which tells me the surface is going to peel off any minute now, and it's going to be unpleasant. But that's fine. Obviously, started watching Lain again. Also, I was kicking around, randomizing some stuff, and I've watched the series called Ikitosen before.
Yes.
Just shonen girl fighting all kinds of stuff. Pantsu, great fun.
Yeah.
Oppai everywhere. And I didn't realize that there is an Ikitosen Great Guardian. So I started watching that. I'm like, oh, cool. And finally found that Maiko-chan, the series that I wanted to see. I don't think we got a chance to review it when we did the new seasons. But it is, two girls go to Kyoto to study to be Maikos, to be in the district. And
apprentice geisha, basically.
You're right. One of them gets chosen because she is more elegant, more capable, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And her friend doesn't get chosen, but they decide, since she can cook, to make her the cook for the house. And it's just so cute because the girl who gets chosen is very, very cool about it. You know what I mean? She's not like, She's very chill about it. And the girl who doesn't get chosen is completely stoked that her friend did and just wants to do everything in her power to support everybody in the house who's going to, eventually be a full-on geisha with the skills that she has. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. I'm so glad I found this. I'm so glad I got access to it now.
That's cool.
Where did you find it? Because I think I wanted to see this too.
I found
the internet?
The internet?
The internet?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
The interwebs?
There.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just ask Lain. She'll know.
Yeah, Lain. Well, it's in the Wired.
Have you seen the Lain? Not Emilio. I don't think any of us have seen Wonder Egg Priority. We've seen episode 1. I have heard the ending infuriated a lot of people.
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah. I've seen 2 episodes,
and
I'm like, the vibe we got from the watch party from episode 1 is it never lets up.
Oh boy!
Like that vibe just keeps going, and it's just like you can feel there's a way that can be satisfying, and there's a way that can be like not so satisfying.
It's a train going 120 miles an hour, and what's it aiming towards?
And that's what you're saying is what I was afraid of, was like that they were going to take it someplace that I was going to end up at the end of it crying and screaming at it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm already doing that on so many things. But
okay.
I do.
Gotcha.
I will
Burning comedy. Who's not screaming with me?
That badminton anime?
Oh, dude, I'm like all over that. No, just kidding.
Fungifago, the ending of Technolize is very much an ending. That is an ending where I literally paused the DVD and got up and just walked around the room for like half an hour. It's not a bad ending. I am not saying it's a bad ending at all. I think it is actually a perfect ending. But it packs an emotional wallop that blindsided me. I did not expect it to go where it went. And at the end, I was like, that's correct. And oh my gosh, I'm having all the feelings. So just be ready for that. They did a brilliant job where all of that goes. Again, one of those endings, some people just really don't like it, don't go, understandable. But I think it fits, but it's also just like, oh. So, yeah.
Hits you in the feels.
Hits you in the feels. Thank you, Don Emilio. Good to know the cliffhanger unresolved issues. Because I think they're planning on doing more Wonder Egg Priority. So maybe one of those things where they're like, ha ha! Tune in next time. It's like, ah! Yeah.
So much drama I can take.
Do you feel like we put you through the ringer? Come around for the second shot. Jeez.
Did you like Made in Abyss? Anyway.
Culinad after story. Check out Culinad after story. Like, oh god, no. I won't do this.
Yeah, that's cool, Becca. Finishing Demon Slayer. Good
Nice.
on you. Mugen Train to look forward to, and then season 2 coming this fall.
Yep. Saw that.
So good for you. Steve, how about you? What you been watching?
Well, aside from preparing for July 4th, my beer wine store and just making sure everyone has enough booze to be stupid today and tomorrow.
That was almost a spit take. You almost got me.
Many digits will be lost thanks to you, Steve.
Yeah, of course, watching Serial Experiments Lain and just thoroughly confused but thoroughly enjoying it. I think I said before, I'm very surprised this had not come up on my radar before, but I'm enjoying it. Let's see what else. So this week, no, I'm not going to talk about the burning trash pile, suicide, and shooting that happened next door in the past 72 hours. 72 hours. So we'll just skip over that one.
Okay, sure.
It's been a spicy week next door then.
Yeah, Jesus. Spicy meatball you want no part of.
Mamma mia.
So I have a car that is very old. It's a technical term is POS, and so
Point
in
of
my
sale. Yes. Go with that.
Yes. Let's be kind and go with that. So it has, as far as musical entertainment is concerned, a radio and a CD player, and that's it. So
Fancy.
I know, fancy. I wear my top hat in there if I could fit it.
Yeah.
But so the other day, I have a little bit of a longish commute, about 30 minutes. So I was looking for music to listen to, and I was in a rush, and I just grabbed 2 discs, and I got into the car, and they both just sang music on. Because that was helpful.
Your mixtape CD.
Just a mixed CD, and it just says music. And I'm just like,
Sure.
Put it in. I'm driving down the road, and it's the OVA theme song, Tension Boyo.
Oh, wow.
I'm driving down the road, down 97 towards Annapolis, and I'm going at 6 o'clock in the morning, going, what? Because it starts with the what, and I'm just like, no, wait, what? No, really? As I'm driving, I'm just kind of grooving along to it, and then it goes into De La Soul, Hey Hey Ring Ring.
Okay.
And then it goes into the One Piece song. I don't know where I picked this song up, the One Piece theme song.
All right.
And then it went into here's a deep dive for you. Then it went into the club song from the movie Basic Instinct.
What?
All right.
Yes. And then I'm listening to that, and then it goes on to Shanghai Honey from Orange Range.
Okay.
Okay. And then it goes into LL Cool J saying, Mama said knock you out.
All right, sure. Uh-huh.
And then it went into this weird clubby version, and I think it was by Maria Kamawara, club version of Macross, Remember Love.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
I didn't
And
know
I'm
there was a
driving
club version.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm driving down the road, and I'm listening to this, and of course, the CD just said music on there, and I'm just driving down the road, and I was just like going, how old, wait a minute, this is like from 2005?
Yeah.
2006? Wow, what was I drinking back then? Malt liquor.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You get
clearly,
this off of Napster?
Well.
Maybe.
that was disc 2.
Okay.
That was the second disc.
Disc 1 was
a whole bunch
LimeWire.
of other, and it had a whole bunch of like Larkin Cell
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
on there. It had a,
Hall &
it had,
Oates.
And it had a what else did it? It had a, and I don't know what the concert was. It was a live version by of Tank, by Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts. And it was a live version of it,
Cool.
and it sounds And I'll have to find it either on the hard drive or re-rip it and put it on somewhere on Discord, because it is better than what was originally put on the album. It's just amazing. It's just really good high quality. But again, it's just like this weird mix of songs, and I'm just like, where? Oh my God, I was so clearly I was watching Adult Swim, right? Toonami,
right?
Drunk, going, "Hi, it's my car," and that's
Just downloading
stuff.
Yeah.
And there we go. So
I
I didn't watch anime. I just relived 2005.
There we go. Hey. There was a live concert the Seatbelts gave of Cowboy Bebop music, like back in 2001 or something, 1999 or something. And it was on YouTube at one point, but I don't see it. Like it may take some digging to find that. That is the thing.
Wow.
Jay asks, has this year had any amazing anime coming out in terms of high-grade anime? The list I would come up with is probably Laid Back Camp Season 2.
Oh, yeah.
Partly because it's just,
Laid Back Camp.
Well, and we get a sequel that actually is a sequel. They're like, what you got in Season 1, you get exactly in Season 2. Thank you. Not messing with the formula. So I'm a Spider, so what? Some friends of mine, one of who's I think is in the chat, finished and absolutely adores Skate the Infinity.
Really?
And everything I've seen about that show says it is just an absolute blast. Just great fun all the way through.
Which I thought Steve would have been all over that with his skateboarding background.
But yeah, and apparently, like what you see in episode 1, it's that. It is just absurdly over-the-top shonen skateboarding for the entire time. It's great fun. Odd Taxi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently, the last episode came out and everyone was like... and, of course, X-Arm.
Sure, why not?
Oh, that tumor Brent has. Crazy again. Oh, bless his heart. Now, and that being said, it's always that question: is what is good to who?
Right.
So
exactly.
Undoubtedly, it exists because it was good for someone enough to get it made, and there are people out there, bless them, that they love it. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Super.
Absolutely.
That's their jam. Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a joke about its reputation, not about anyone liking it. Also, I just realized Super Cub. Everyone's loving Super Cub.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Laid Back Camp with Honda Super Cub. Great. Oh, they introduced to the end of the another one of the characters is so adorably cute. Oh, it's terrible how cute she is.
Has anybody in chat seen the end of To Your Eternity, or is that ended yet? I wonder.
I think it's done.
Okay.
But I don't. I swear I saw something that said they've already been greenlit for part 2.
Okay. So does season 1 end satisfactorily? Does anyone know? I wonder.
I've gotten into episode 4, so I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't heard anybody talk about anything, and I've been kind of doing that la 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 la.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's one of those properties where I think they could quite conceivably end on, if not a cliffhanger, sort of to be continued, and everyone in Japan knows, and it wouldn't disappoint people to say, okay, this is going to be a long-term thing.
I think
Hero? Cool.
Really do have To Your Eternity really does it the very premise in and of itself has so much time involved in it that it's long format, you could run that from the beginning of the world until some point in the Gundam far future. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And all the stories in there that you could just do bits and pieces of. It almost is to your eternity. It's almost infinitely to eternity for stories that can come up.
Exactly. That's the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple volumes of To Your Eternity manga, and man, and just that is manga right there. It is Oima's Phoenix, in my opinion.
Actually, speaking of good manga, I forgot.
Yeah.
I had gotten and read the review.
Ooh, nice. Yep.
Yeah. All-time favorite.
Really?
For me.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I did, like I said, I did a review for it. It will be up next week. But it's Shigeru Mizuki. So he draws things goofily, like the characters, right? But then you have like they make Hitler look like
Charlie Chaplin. What?
It kinda. Let me see if I can find something. Find a good one here. Like, I don't know if you can see that, but that's him in the upper panel.
Yeah.
Corner panel. So he draws them goofily like that, but then he does, but it's superimposed on things like, oh yeah, let's see if I can find that one. It's like him as death or something like that.
It's basically it's a biography, right?
Yeah, it's biography. Yeah, so then you have something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
is it a single volume or a multi-volume?
Yes, it's a single volume. It took me about 2 days, leisure, 2 days. It wasn't like I powered through it. Okay. And it denotes from his time. It starts when he is in Vienna, trying to be an artist.
You get to the Art Academy.
Yeah, it's actually right after he's failed the exam, and it takes it all the way to the end.
Wow.
It does not talk about more than 3 panels worth about the Holocaust. This is really about, but the foreword explains why, and it really talks about just like the way they put it was that for the Japanese, yes, the genocide was a horrible thing. It's not something that they would have done necessarily that systematic. And they kind of said, well, that's the Germans and what they're doing. And we're here as an alliance of convenience for each other. So it's not like we're signing off on this, but that's not really what matters to us. So when Mizuki was doing the stuff like that.
There's an image.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just it's a very oddly funny. He puts in jokes in there and makes Hitler look like a buffoon until he isn't a buffoon. That's kind of the magic of the book, like the magic of Hitler. That's the point he's trying to put across, is that he does all these ridiculous things, but for a purpose, and everything is contrived, everything is thought through. And interestingly, in 2 occasions, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it yet, on 2 occasions, the character Hitler that he draws breaks the 5th wall.
Wow.
To explain 2 jokes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but it's definitely historical. There's a lot of references. It's very annotated. So, like, if there's things you don't know, and at the end of the book, it actually has an asterisk, you can point it out and go, okay, the Reichstag fire, the such and such tree, such and such of this, is that, those kinds of things. And they have a huge, I was like almost intimidated by it, but there's this like huge, main characters.
Okay.
And it goes on for pages.
Yeah.
And it actually goes in details of like former friends, not just
wow.
Goring and people like that, but actual friends he had in Vienna.
Jeez.
People who tried to take advantage of him, or tried to be his friend, or tried to help him, or just people who are just like at best are a footnote in history. And he actually talks about those.
That's
people.
cool.
And
Interesting.
and it's just, and of course it's also a visually stunning.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
With
Like,
one
for
hand.
example, this is like the first time I've seen in a non-dry historical text that talks about Hitler when he was a intelligence officer for the government after World War I,
Interesting.
and was infiltrating political parties in Germany to make sure that they weren't going to overthrow the government.
Wow. Yeah.
They should have assigned him to KP duty.
Yes.
Latrine digging. That would have
Yes.
saved us all a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's really cool. I have been not watching much anime, but I did watch something geeky this past couple weeks. I watched Starman,
Wow.
the Jeff Bridges
Yes.
Wow.
movie directed by John Carpenter,
Yes.
a sci-fi romance movie. And I got to the end of it. So basically, alien comes down to Earth, has a mission, sort of quasi-kidnaps this woman to take her back to his landing site. Or take her back to this meeting site. And I got to the end of it and I was like, there's nothing technically wrong with this movie. All the different pieces are there. But it's like it lacks passion. It's like everything was assembled to do the right thing. And it has heart. Like, it definitely has a certain amount of soul to it. And I went back and I researched, and this is one of the reasons why I do this channel. Because finding out the history behind things is often so illuminating. When John Carpenter made The Thing, it was a box office bomb.
Yeah.
Turns out. And according to him, the only way he could remain viable in Hollywood was to immediately make the exact opposite film.
Boy,
And to prove that he could do like a family-friendly sort of romantic sweet movie. Meanwhile, the script for Starman had been bouncing around. I think it was Paramount for years and years and years. Never got made. And then suddenly E.T. came out.
Yep.
And they're like, we have a sentimental science fiction story. We can do that. Yes. And so they talked to John Carpenter. John Carpenter's like, please, yes, give me something to do. And that totally makes sense. Like, this is something that the studio threw whatever money it had at it because this was going to make money. And John Carpenter was like, I'm going to do this thing. And it's not that John Carpenter was not interested in it. Like, he clearly had some interest in, like, the science fiction elements and the room. And he said, like, he enjoyed the experience of saying, can I make a romance story work with this sort of action sci-fi plot? Like, can these things be compatible? So he was interested in it, but it just feels like a school assignment. We're going to do all these things, make it, and we're going to try to make it quality. We're going to try to put everything into it, but it just does not come together as a satisfying experience in a weird way.
So you didn't laugh at the part when the cop pulls him over and says, "Do you know what a yellow light means?"
Yeah, I did laugh at that actually.
Go faster?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And all the performances, no complaints. All the themes, everything was there, and it just really didn't come together for me. But I'm not saying I would not recommend it. Like I'm glad I watched it. It was an interesting experience, and like a lot of good elements in it. It just kind of lacked a spine, in a weird way. But yeah, that was Starman. So I'm going to be moving on from that
It was
to
a forgettable film.
Yeah, sadly.
Unfortunately.
I'll be moving on from that in my 2021 Geek Catch-Up to Red Dawn.
Wow.
The original, right?
That's on my list. Yes, yeah, I'm going.
Oh, the remake.
No.
What?
Yeah, I'm going. So for those, I'm going chronologically through all of the geek movies and properties that I've missed over the years. Starting in the 80s,
You are
going all the way
going to
through.
have so
Some
much
kind of
fun.
wonderful
Full
anything.
anything. Better off dead.
Better off dead.
which is celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Oh wow. Okay. And there are many that I'm not going to see because it just didn't come on my radar. But yeah. So Red Dawn and then The Fly.
The Fly. Oh,
The Fly will be after Red Dawn. Yeah.
Brundle Fly.
Yeah.
Brundle Fly.
And not obviously the 1986 Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Fly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Lovely.
Oh, you're gonna
Not
have
the
so much
original
fun.
black and white.
I have seen that actually, like back in the day on.
Well, if you had a creature double
AMC
feature Saturday,
somewhere.
yes.
Yeah. I think that was an AMC thing. By the
All the
way,
Hammer films and all.
speaking of that, I wanted to throw something out to the group. We did a thing called Hobby Hopper some time back, and thanks to some discussions with a few folks, I want to bring Hobby Hopper back in a new form. So before, the idea of Hobby Hopper was that we would collectively choose a hobby to experiment with every month. And that turned out to be hard. Coordinating all of that and choosing something everyone was working on. So I'm thinking of, instead, as a community, anyone who wants to join in on this will choose a hobby that they want to explore during the upcoming month. They'll set up some kind of goal, and we'll check in on that over the course of the month and see how folks are going and just talk about what we've been exploring, what we've been learning, and all that kind of good stuff. And so you can just try something different every month, and we'll check in on the weekly dig and on the Discord. Making barbecue sauce, that'd be a good one. So I
Welcome to
think
the exciting world of competitive napping.
there we go.
Pre-show.
Gerhard's hard
I can see the SCTV sketch right now. I'm thinking of doing painting, like landscape painting, for the month. But is anyone interested in hopping on to Hobby Hopper this month?
I just gotta figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
Body painting.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
Body painting.
Body painting. All right.
Volunteer?
Yeah. Nobody.
I'm trying to think if I have a talent I could use for a hobby.
Well, that's the thing, is that this is a perfect opportunity to try something new.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Try something new, or you could do something you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I could do things that I've already failed at. No. Let's
No.
not do that.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I sucked at this the first time. Let's try it again.
Yeah. I was it Deep Work? What was it? There's a thing I was watching where they said that. Oh yeah, it was Cal Newport. He did a TED talk on why follow your passion is terrible advice. He said because when you actually look back at people who are successful, they often did not have a passion that they knew that they were going to pursue when they were 6. They stumbled upon it and they just applied themselves really, really a lot to that thing. And they just kept on. He said, Steve Jobs didn't love computers when he was 12 or when he was 18.
He didn't exist.
Well, yeah. But he met Woz, and Woz was doing this thing, and he was like, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in the business side of things." He kind of grew into it over time. And he said, "It turns out what the key is to try different things and just kind of not go deep, but just spend time with them and just do it over and over until you get to the point where you can actually do something with them. And then if you don't have to do it forever." But just, spend time with things as opposed to trying to find your one passion in life that will define you forever, right? It's just try different stuff and see what happens, basically.
Hey, whatever gets me to a multi-billionaire, sure, I'll do that for a while.
I would not agree that is the goal in life, but...
Hey, everybody's got different goals.
I could make a
I know a lot of unhappy rich people.
micronation.
Okay.
Micronesian.
Micronation.
Oh.
Micronation. The Gerhard Shogun.
Okay. Shogunate of 1.
The ninth floor Gerhard Shogun.
There we go. Shogunate of 1.
That's right.
Sits on top of the 1st through 8th floor Confederation. What? It's first intergalactic space
There's
federation.
some like sci-fi novel that is set in a world of like, it's actually based on like Confucian hierarchy. So everyone lives in this like giant pyramid, and everyone like if you live a level up above somebody, you are literally like hierarchically socially better than them. Yeah, it's this whole society. It is not like this is how people actually behave. It's like let's take Confucianism and like create a whole society that is like that is doing this exactly, and it's really interesting. And then reading older manga. Actually, that would be a good hobby to dig into.
Learning Japanese.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested, hop on down to the Hobby Hopper channel on the Discord, and we will be coordinating and talking about more stuff there. That is a possibility.
Ooh, making clocks.
Making clocks?
Making clocks.
Cool.
Clocks versus clogs.
Yes,
Okay.
clocks. No, I'm not going to take a hunk of wood and get that.
Clogs.
Yeah. That would just
strap
drive
two pieces
me.
of wood to your feet.
They're
Clogs.
Making clogs would drive me to watch more Lain.
I hear that. That's
My hobby's going to be getting taller. No.
There was a great, almost live sketch called Record Breakers, where this guy comes on the show called Record Breakers. And he's going to break a record, and he's really looking forward to it. And he said, I've been training a lot, and I just really believe in this. What is your goal? It is to become the world's tallest man. Like, how do you plan? I'm just working really hard. I'm just putting all of my heart and soul into it. And I just believe if you really believe in what you're trying to accomplish, then you can go there. So I'm just really going to do, how tall are you? 5'8". And then how do it just goes on. It's really funny.
But see, you got a goal. You got to be
Right,
focused.
exactly.
You're ready. You're doing this
Have a
thing.
goal, exactly. Blacksmithing is really cool, Jay. There's actually a local blacksmithing club that I want to get back into, but they're not open yet with COVID. So they're reopening. Yeah. So I'm hoping to soon maybe do some blacksmithing myself.
I'd love there to be a kendo dojo in Roanoke, but closest is Blacksburg down at Tech. So.
Y'all hear that? Hold on. Just a moment, everyone. You do a thing. No, I didn't need to. Hold on. Hold on, everyone. No, it's not even that. It's not even that. Hold on. Okay. Okay. We're very professional here. See, we're all good. We're all set up. There we go. Okay. All right. We're fine. Everything's fine. I'm all right. Fine. Thank you. How are you? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Look, large leak. Very dangerous. Did you know Harrison Ford didn't rehearse that scene? No. He told everyone, he like read the lines once and then went in and said, I just want to go in blind so I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. It absolutely did. Oh dear. All right, let us do this. Welcome everyone to the latest anime news for the week ending July 3rd, 2021. This week in unexpected and possibly concerning live-action anime adaptations, Deadline has reported that Sony's Columbia Pictures has ordered a feature film script based on Akihiro Tsukushi's Made in Abyss manga. Vertigo and Masaoka from Mobius Productions, who previously collaborated on the 2017 Death Note film, as well as the currently in production live-action Promised Neverland series, are producing the project. Writer and director Kevin McMullen will also pen the script. He previously wrote and directed the drama film Low Tide, and his next project is set to be the horror film First Harvest. There are not a lot of anime that I can think of as being less suited to a live-action adaptation than an anime series about two children descending into basically James Cameron's Avatar and meeting a furry. And then episode 12 happens. Or 10 or whatever it is. Oh! So. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
Sorry
I
about
was
that.
gonna say because
It was such a horrible thing, and it was just. And as soon as I heard that, I read that and that it was the same person.
Vertigo
Like,
Entertainment and Masaoka. Yeah, I'm
okay.
like,
I was just like, I'm like, okay, so this is set up to fail. I'm telling you right now. This is set up
that's
to
an interesting
fail.
question. Yeah, is this
set up
just
to
like,
fail.
yeah.
And I don't think it's meant to do anything. I think it's action.
Oh, that could be.
Here's a question. So for those not familiar, Made in Abyss is about a girl whose mother didn't come back from this giant abyss. It's sort of a dungeon exploration environment. She finds this sort of robot boy. They go down into the abyss to try to find her mother. And let's just say at the end, a very bad thing happens to one of those characters that is shown very clearly on screen. And then they meet up with another character and we find out her tragic backstory, which has some very disturbing imagery. How would you make this work as a Hollywood movie? Meaning, there's no way in heck it's actually going to be like 12-year-olds. Right?
Well, it can't be.
Right. Like, they're just not going to do that.
It literally, that's what I'm saying. It's set up to fail. Because you would have to change everything.
Yeah.
You would literally have to, it would not be the anime.
Yeah.
In order to make it work. I mean,
First
it would
of
not
all,
be. Yeah.
You're
For the one
boy.
scene, jeez, for that one scene, which
Now-
is horrifying and heartbreaking at the same time.
And the problem with that scene is that it's set up, right? Like
Yeah.
that is they're building to that throughout the entire
Yeah.
show. And like I said before, I don't have a problem with it happening. I have a problem with it being shoved in the audience's faces for like 3 minutes straight.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you don't do that.
As long as you make the mother Olympia Dukakis, Scarlett Johansson plays the girl looking for Olympia Dukakis, Dwayne The Rock Johnson plays the robot boy, and Michael Bay is attached for technical expertise, and make it a Baseplosion extravaganza.
That is frighteningly possible.
That's how you make this the wonder hit of the summer of 2025.
Oh, jeez.
Right there.
Yeah.
And then everybody on the staff gets killed.
They're put on
It's
a
a
plane.
thing.
The plane is never seen again.
They're flown off into the Pacific, never to be
Yeah.
seen again.
And the problem is, like, given what the Abyss looks like that's hideously expensive to make. Like, you can't just restructure that to make it cheaper without completely reinventing it from scratch. Yeah, I just don't know how I do it. Other than, I guess you could tell a story about them without going into the Abyss. Like, in the town. Have it just a story of them just, doing stuff. And maybe they get a little bit into the Abyss. Maybe they get, onto the first level. And, like, that's the end of the movie.
I think you solve the entire technical problem of the Abyss by going to the Cal Arts 3D modeling class, and you make this their thesis project, and that they sit down and they program all of this to make the Abyss a 3D modeled wonderland, and then you green screen Scarlett Johansson and Dwayne the Rock Johnson into that.
There's a YouTube group that calls him Rock the Dwayne Johnson, and I just love that. It's like.
So there we go. That's how you get the
Abyss.
Student art.
I think whoever's making that film are staring into the abyss right now, trying to figure out how to please their corporate masters on that one.
I hope they're actually watching this stream, and right now there's a large royalty check on me. Please.
If only.
Yeah, wow.
Moving along, almost 2 years have passed since the tragic, deadly arson attack on Kyoto Animation Studio 1 building. The KyoAni website announced this week that they will be streaming a special memorial video on their YouTube channel on July 18th, the anniversary of the fire, to commemorate those who were lost. The video will begin streaming at 10:30 a.m. Japan time and will run for around 10 minutes with a moment of silence in the middle. It will remain available on the YouTube channel for the rest of the 18th. The announcement notes that they had considered holding an in-person memorial ceremony but decided to online live stream due to COVID-19. It also requests that people refrain from visiting the site of the building and sending flowers or monetary gifts, as they will be gratefully declined. The announcement states, "We sincerely express our gratitude for your continued kindness and support. With grief in our hearts, we've been producing animations while supporting each other and then have kept moving forward day by day since then." End quote. Very sad, but worth noting, and I'm glad that they are continuing the remembrances. It's important.
And I thought I saw KyoAni did Kobayashi, Dragon Maid, and I thought I saw an article that said there's a credit in episode 1 of season 2 for the storyboarding that was done by one of the creators that died in the fire. And that they made that a point of making sure that his credit is known, because even though he wasn't around for the actual animation process of it, his contribution to that episode 1 was key to it. So I saw that, I was just like, oh, that's heart crushing. It's so sad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's great they're doing that, but it's so sad.
Yeah.
What happened? So.
Yeah. It was a tragedy. No question. Moving along as unawkwardly as possible, you might remember us talking about the Art of Anime and Everything Cool auction a few weeks ago. Well, the bidding officially took place last weekend, and the U.S.'s first major anime auction was a record-breaking success.
Good.
The auction attracted a record 2,853 bidders from across the world, set record-breaking prices on a number of anime sales, none of which I got, and sold more than $2.1 million overall. Needless to say, Heritage Auctions is already planning a second one. The auction also achieved sell-through rates of 100% by value and 99.8% by lots sold. Sales from classics like My Neighbor Totoro and Akira brought in incredible bids. The Totoro cell pictured, showing Satsuki and Mei in the rain with their umbrella, drew in 69 bids before winning $84,000, nearly 17 times its pre-auction estimate. To be clear, cells from Ghibli films now regularly go for upper hundreds at the very least. A cell of the Sisters Standing in Front of the Cat Bus received 45 bids and sold for $72,000, which is almost 29 times its initial pre-auction estimate. An Akira cell featuring Kaneda on the motorcycle was won for $78,000 after initially estimating selling for $5,000, and a series of 4 other Akira cells sold for $78K. Clearly, there are anime collectors out there with a whole lot of money to spend on their favorites.
Yeah, no joke. Wow.
Ooh.
I was just laughing at myself because I could just totally have seen myself going, I'll put in for $50. Someone on the other end just went, bid number 328, $50. Okay.
Meanwhile, a guy in a top hat and a little mustache and a monocle Santa went, $50. I would like to bid $5,000. Like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
We got all
Hell
hoity-toity on us, have we now?
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that anime merchandise, certainly sells for a lot, but we haven't seen these sorts of prices before. Obviously on eBay, things like this, again, we see thousands of dollars for Ghibli sells for really good ones. But the fact that we're seeing these sorts of things means there are people willing to spend that kind of cash on it.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Yeah, when you go to not that eBay's not legit, but when you go to like Sotheby's kind of auction
Right,
kind of thing,
Right.
where it's like, okay, now it's not just people like overestimating grossly like something that was produced in the trillions.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this
Right,
keychain
yeah.
of Canada. It's like, that thing cost 2 cents and it's only worth $10 and you want it for $500.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This is like a full-on legit auction kind of deal where it's like,
Right.
yep, that means things are coming up in the world of anime. Invest now.
Yes.
Yeah, save your Akira cells.
Oh, jeez.
All those Akira
Something-
cells you have sitting around somewhere.
So I was gonna say somebody in Japan right now is like thumbing through their file drawer, and be like, "What did I keep? Oh, I kept the production notes. Oh, that's gotta be worth
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
There's some rough sketches.
That's
that'll work.
one of the things I'm curious about is what other production artifacts are going to start showing up that people are going to start making available. Storyboards, like I'd love to see more storyboards available. Something that doesn't
And as
show
you
up a
see
lot.
things like $78,000
Yeah.
for Kaneda on the bike, yeah, you might see storyboards showing up real soon.
I'm surprised more production committees don't do this, like directly to finance the anime.
Yeah, but do you think if they had done that for Akira in the process of making Akira, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you're
you'd have-
trying
If
to,
the studio behind Laid Back Camp offered cells to you right now, John, would you buy them?
I would crawl over both your dead bodies. Only because it's proven. You know what I mean? If
Right.
they laid that
Right.
up, like I could understand doing that for season 2. So you get.
Oh yeah,
season
I mean
one, you think-
afterwards. Yeah, I mean
Yeah, I
afterwards.
was
Yeah,
gonna say, it's like it's hard to sell it as like, oh, it's gonna premiere in 2 weeks. Do you want to buy some? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
no,
if this
yeah,
is any
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think after season 1 of something, if you were like, okay, this is wildly popular, could you imagine prior to Mugen Train launching, them being like, well, what do we do with these? And then after Mugen Train, you're like, well, should we just finance everything forever? Sure. Let's sell some cells from
Yeah.
Mugen Train. Like, aha.
The original Evangelion cells were kept locked in a vault for a very long time. And the belief was, it was exactly for that reason. Like, these are just increasing in value. The more we keep them in there. Yep, totally.
It's like that is a good way to self-finance if you're tired of the committee system.
Yeah, possible.
But it's got to be a hit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got to
Yeah.
be a hit, otherwise.
Well, and I
it's
can
just
see,
trashing them all.
I can see a major director doing it, and just on the name alone, you could make some money. Who knows?
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy his wine.
Yeah,
Buys
good wine.
Coppola.
Good wine.
It is.
Now, there are reality competition shows for just about everything these days, from cooking to tattooing to glass blowing. And as of this week, Shonen Jump is getting in on the action as well. Million Tag, Shueisha's new battle audition show, aims to discover the next star manga creator. It'll follow 6 teams, each made up of a prospective manga creator, or in one case, a duo, and a manga editor from Shueisha as they compete in 4 challenges. The winning manga creator will receive a prize of 5 million yen, or about $45,000, a manga serialization on the Shonen Jump Plus website, a compiled book volume of said manga, and an anime adaptation.
What?
Damn.
If you ever were curious about the relative cost of anime adaptations, they could just throw that in there. Yeah, we'll publish it, and we'll give you an anime. That's fine. Yeah, we'll just make an anime out of it.
Okay, for as funny as I thought this was really starting to go, that's a hell of a package.
Yeah.
I know.
Holy cow.
Now, granted, this is what this sounds like is you'll get a serialization for a volume,
Yeah.
and then they'll make an anime of that volume, right?
Yeah,
So
like
it's going to be an
an
OVA.
OVA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But still,
well,
rather
you
than
know?
getting getting to get published, and then all those individual steps to try and get to somebody to get into an adaptation of any sort,
Yep.
to just do this as one giant ball, like,
Yep.
damn, that's awesome.
Now, Netflix is set to exclusively stream the eventual anime adaptation, which also explains why it's so cheap. And Netflix anime producer Kohei Obara will serve as a guest judge in the competition's final challenge. That's where the money's coming from. Guest judges for the final challenge will also include Chainsaw Man creator Tatsuki Fujimoto and Hell's Paradise Jigokuraku creator Yuji Kaku. The show will run for 8 episodes. I got that wrong. On the official... this is the competition. On the official Weekly Shonen Jump YouTube channel, its first episode debuted yesterday morning. So you can go and check that out. Now, unfortunately, it also dropped this week. Some creators talking about the rates Netflix is looking for its anime shows. And it turns out Netflix is asking for... is basically offering something like 20% less per cut than the lowest standard rate per cut in the industry. That's what they're paying.
20% less?
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. They're asking like really low rates, even compared to like bottom rate stuff, and probably banking on their name. And saying, well, do you want to work on a Netflix show? So that kind of dropped this week. And other folks are saying, yeah, like we've seen this too. That like the Netflix is not paying out for their anime series, which is in the industry being the way it is. That's not a good direction to go in.
No.
So sad, but I know.
Actually, just improving on their anime choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, back in the days before they even had streaming, Netflix was so spartan with any kind of anime availability that I thought it was really kind of more of a golden age where you had started having Netflix animes and Crunchyroll was, sponsoring stuff. And I thought this is, for them to backtrack on this.
And that's all,
Especially
on Twitter.
Especially when I don't think they have any real legitimate reason to do so.
That's the thing. I personally, I suspect that Netflix has finally spread itself too thin. I think they have umpteen billion productions, not just anime, but just they're making so many things that there's just not enough money for each one.
That now they're just squeezing everybody to be like, you'll make it cheaper, right?
Yeah, who knows? But I'm looking forward to seeing how this this competition works out. I'm sure it'll be Japanese, but
I
still
was hopeful for the competition, but Netflix is doing things. Jeez, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate. Also this week, other stories we wanted to mention potentially in passing. 2 new anime series were announced this week based on Square Enix properties, but no, neither of them are Final Fantasy. The classic RPG series Mana held a 30th anniversary live stream this week and revealed that Warner Bros. Japan is producing an anime adaptation of Legend of Mana, the 4th game entry in this series, and a very beloved one. The series will be titled Legend of Mana: The Teardrop Crystal, which sounds to me like Magical Girl series, and will be produced by Graphinica and Yokohama Animation Lab, which previously produced the opening cinematic movie for the game's remastered version. So that's cool. The game series producer revealed it was actually because of the pitch for the animated series that the remaster was even created, and promised that the people involved in the project still have the love for the series just the same as back then. Square Enix also launched a new mixed media project titled
Deep Insanity,
which, like any good mixed media project, will include a manga, which actually launched in February, a game, and a television anime. The anime is titled
Deep Insanity, The Lost Child,
and is set to premiere this October with a story taking place in between the manga and the game. The project is set in a world overrun by a mysterious syndrome causing sudden comas, and a mysterious underground realm opened up which might hold the cure.
Huh.
Nothing ever ends. Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Nothing ever ends. The final episode of the new Fruits Basket anime adaptation aired this week. But guess what? A new anime is coming in 2022. centering on the backstory of Toru's parents.
Of course.
And it'll be called Kyoko and Katsuya's Story. The manga is also inspiring a stage play adaptation, also set to debut in 2022. Because,
Yeah,
you gotta.
you got it.
Because Fruits Baskets on ice can't come
Right.
before the stage play.
Exactly. A new TV animation has been announced celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Takara Tomy Arts and the Pretty series. The Watcha Pre-Magi series will premiere in October, and the inevitable accompanying card game will debut this fall. The new anime includes the classic motifs of song, dance, fashion, and adds a new theme of magic for the latest one of those. The Ikitosen manga also had a TV anime adaptation announced this week. The original Ikitosen manga began in 2000 and follows a high school girl with a magical sword that allows her to channel the spirit of an ancient Chinese hero as she fights students from other schools, and they shred large portions of their clothes in the process. The manga has inspired 4 previous anime adaptations and 5 OVAs.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
I wonder why.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's the appeal?
It's just
literature.
fun. Yeah, it's classic literature.
Right.
There's a lot to be learned there.
Yes, from all of the exposed boobage.
Physics.
Physics,
I'm
yeah.
learning physics.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
How to define
Kinetic
physics.
movement.
Takes a lot of work.
Stuff.
Yeah. Did you all know that the Gainax Bounce was inspired by Hayao Miyazaki and Nausicaa the Valley of Wind?
What?
What?
Yeah, we'll get back to that later. Toei Animation, Universal
Wait,
Music,
what?
and Ageha Springs, a music production company, announced last week that they're partnering to launch a new Project Girls Rock Audition, which will include both anime bands and real bands. The companies are seeking vocalists, guitarists, bassists, drummers, and keyboardists to audition. The winning applicants will not only star as voice actors in the anime project, but will also form real-life bands to play at concerts and make their major label debut.
Oh, making the band done Japan stuff.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Aha.
What I would love to see is Heatlander Z somehow sneak onto the show and win.
Wow.
Too many mics and
There we go.
CA.
Wow.
Director Seiji Mizushima of Fullmetal Alchemist and Mobile Suit Gundam 00 posted a teaser visual this week announcing a new film project made with the staff from the Expelled from Paradise film, which I have thoughts on. Along with Mizushima, this includes Toei Animation and writer Gen Urabuchi, known for Madoka Magica and Fate Zero. I have thoughts on Expelled from Paradise, but moving along. Madhouse unveiled a new anime film project on Friday titled Goodbye Dawn Gleese. I don't know why they chose that title, but it looks charming. Set to open sometime next year. Atsuko Ishizuka of A Place Further Than the Universe and Pet Girl of Sakuraso will both
really good series.
will write and direct as her first original anime film. It'll follow, wait for it, a 15-year-old on the verge of adulthood at the beginning of summer vacation. Ishizuka noted that after reaching Antarctica in A Place Further Than the Universe, she opened a map and looked for the exact opposite extreme and found Iceland. And it was like, okay, that's where my next thing is going to be based. Sure. That makes sense.
Okay.
Last weekend's MAPPA Stage 2021 10th anniversary event debuted a teaser trailer for a new original anime film written and directed by Mari Okada of O Maidens in Your Savage Seasons and many other things. Mari Okada is a very interesting voice. I'm actually just pulling up a little bit because I had some other info on here. She's been a writer in anime since 1998. Worked on Hamtaro, Basilisk,
Little Hamster's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Hamtaro.
Rose Maiden Trauma and Fate Stay Night, Aria the Natural, Sesame Natural Girls Club, True Tears, Vampire Knight, Toradora, for whom she did series composition. Also Black Butler, Gosick, Fractale, Wandering Sun, Hanasako Iroha, Aquarian Evol, Anohana, Black Rock Shooter,
Oh, jeez.
AKB48, the woman called Fujiko Mine, Pekaro Sakuraso, so forth and so on. Also a little show called Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans. And has done a couple of different anime films, including Makayo and the Promised Flower Blooms. So the new anime will be titled Alice and Theresa's Illusory Factory. It'll be a first love Fantasia story following characters fighting through an uncertain world with love as their weapon, which intrigues me. This week's issue of Kodansha's Weekly Shonen Magazine revealed that all 131 volumes of Hajime no Ippo have finally gotten digital releases as of Thursday, and that all future chapters will also launch digitally as well as physically. It is the first time in the manga's 33-year history all of its chapters are available digitally.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of manga.
131 volumes. Jesus. You'll spend the next 33 years reading.
Yes. And that's one of those manga that's been going back a long ways. So going back and finding the material, digitizing it, I'm sure that was a whole new process. So that's really, really cool. Hajime no Ippo, classic boxing manga. Now, stories about the children of beloved protagonists are becoming quite the popular thing these days. And 2002's classic Mermaid Melody Pichi Pichi Pitch manga is the next to join the fun. Pink Hanamori will begin the new Mermaid Melody Pichi Pichi Pitch Aqua manga in August, featuring a new romance.
Pitchy, pitchy.
Exactly.
Pitchy, pitchy.
Starring Lucia's daughter. One Piece Books announced last week to release an audiobook with the Rising of the Shield Hero light novel series.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. The audiobook features narration from actor Kurt Kanazawa and is now up on audiobooks.com with plans to soon be available on Apple Books, Audible, Nook, Audiobooks, and Spotify.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense for light novels. A lot of folks are, I think, a little intimidated by light novels, but, you're in your car, on the commute.
Yeah.
They should burn through quickly. Now, the Anime Tourism Association had to skip its annual online survey, and yes, there's a thing called the Anime Tourism Association. They had to skip its annual online survey of noteworthy anime pilgrimage sites in 2020 due to COVID-19. The survey's returned this year. Exactly.
COVID what? No.
Yeah.
What's this thing? What?
Yeah. Would that impact tourism?
No, not at all.
Nah.
Yeah. So the survey is returning this year for its fourth run. Starting last week, running through September, votes are being accepted from anime fans around the world to select the Japanese anime 88 spots, a list of favorite places that become famous as the scene for an anime. And 14 randomly selected voting participants will receive Sacred Anime Spot Tour support funds,
What?
with the first prize winner receiving a 30,000 yen prize, second place 10,000 yen. They are required to provide the association with photos and reports of their visit to the Sacred Anime Spot as a condition for receiving the prize. So a way of kind of encouraging folks to document the thing. The Macross Super Dimension 3D Live World Tour Air concert videos featuring Macross 7 and Macross Delta are both streaming worldwide on the official Macross YouTube channel with English subs this week.
Nice.
They feature footage from the anime series plus 3D animated song performances from the Uta Macross smartphone game.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
Really cool to see that. That's all the news for the week. Thank you all for watching. See you next week.
Cool.
Very cool.
So I should tell Kira about that anime tourism thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's been to a few of them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
She can,
Just a few.
just a few. She can make
Little
some cash.
Yeah. It was not in the story, and man, is who has the rights to Hajime no Ippo in the U.S. I do not know. Viz sounds right, though. Viz sounds
Viz
correct.
Media.
Viz
Yeah.
Media.
Mega core.
Dun, 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 dun,
Dun,
dun,
dun.
dun. Oh, dear.
Good old mega core.
Good old, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway. Let's see here. What else? Is there anime history this week? There is. Anime had history this week. Imagine that. Want to talk about that real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where we talk about things that happened this week in anime history. July 3rd, 1992 is the anniversary of Anime Expo, and in a period where we are low on conventions, it's nice to remember back that conventions used to exist, and they'll exist in the future. It had 1,700 attendees at its first attendance. That's pretty darn impressive. All the way back in 1992. So yes, anime fandom goes back that long in America, which is really cool.
Hey, come on! I went to a Robotech anime, Robotech show thing in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah,
1986.
Wow, I need to dig out something.
Robotech Con.
You know,
it happened. It was there. I met
King
Carl
of
Maycheck.
Prussia.
It was great.
God.
You may be on the Robotech DVDs.
You see?
There is
Where's my royalty
footage.
check? I mean, I am.
There is footage on the Robotech DVDs of that convention.
Oh crap!
I'm gonna have to dig those out and see if I can and look through all that footage to see if you're in the background there somewhere.
Oh Lord, you'll
I remember
see
seeing
15-year-old me. Oh God, no! Don't do that.
Yeah, 'cause I remember seeing a whole bunch of. They talked about that being, and I think Malcolm Jamal Warner was there from the Cosby Show. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Also, this week, although not a particular year necessarily, June 30th is Sailor Moon's birthday. So, Serena, aka Usagi, happy birthday. If I have my dates correctly, based on the start of Sailor Moon, Usagi is now 43.
Who
Damn,
cares?
she
But I don't know.
She looks
does.
great for
She
43.
looks very young for 43 years old.
She's
Very
obviously eating the right foods and getting good exercise.
Surgery.
Surgery. Also, Moon Princess from another, magic.
Magic surgery.
Magic surgery. There we go. That's all the history from this week.
Sim, lift your chin. What? Hey. Easy.
I'm also not sure if I'm going to be able to do the little thing I like. Because
why?
it's...
Controversial.
No, I pulled it up, and it's hard to find clips from this that are easier for folks to kind of comprehend, just because of how it's shot and filmed and so forth. But I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a go. I just can't skip through it in the way I can with a lot of anime. But let's just talk about it. Let's just do the thing. Why not?
All right.
Welcome to Brent's Anime Recommendation Corner, where I recommend an anime that I love. And today I'm talking about Some Days Dreamers. No, you've never heard of this show. Neither has anyone else. This is Kiki's Delivery Service, the TV show, but with a high schooler. The main character is a high school girl who has manifested magical powers. And in her world, in the modern world, magic powers are a thing that exists. People know people who have these powers. And so it is heavily regulated because, oh my gosh, magic powers can change the fabric of reality. In fact, when she comes to Tokyo for the first time, she gets freaked out and causes a bunch of cars in the street to levitate so that they won't hit her. That's not good. That's really, really not good. So, to give you an idea, in order to use magic in this world, you have to submit paperwork to a central authority, and they have to approve your use of magic before you can actually cast the spell. But more importantly, and more centrally, this is about coming to a place you're not used to, and trying to fit in. Yume here is, and there's a great moment in this that I'm gonna, Yume is from the country. She's lived all of her life in a very rural environment, think Non-Biori, and now she's come to the big city for the first time. And so the idea in this world is as soon as you start manifesting magical powers, you are required to apprentice with a senior witch to learn how to use your powers and control your powers. So she's been sent into Tokyo to apprentice with somebody. And she's experiencing this. And you can see as I'm fast forwarding through this, one of the interesting things about the show is how much it shows this is what Tokyo is like. Like, here are countertops. Here's all this stuff laid out. It's this very sort of busy environment, which would be very foreign to a country girl. And so she eventually makes her way to the place where she meets a shirtless guy. And then she finally meets her senior witch, who is also a shirtless guy. But this being early 2000s anime, nothing ever happens. And also, like, she's his apprentice? No. But he starts kind of teaching her magic. And the idea is, because everyone knows magic exists, people keep coming to witches and asking for them to do things for them. Things like, my wife passed away. I would like to speak to her one last time. They can do that. I had this sports injury, and it derailed my sports career. And I can't, use that arm the same way I had. Can you fix that for me? All of these things, which are these interesting ethical questions, which the witches, they're all called witches in this, have to think about. They don't have to do it. They can refuse. So this becomes slightly Twilight Zone-esque, where every episode has some interesting question around, okay, here's this power, or here's this request, here's what we could do. Whether we do it or not, whether they end up doing it or not, what was the right choice to make? What is the right thing there to do when you can literally make people's dreams come true? You also have the advantage of, we'll see if we can find her. Let's see here. Skipping through, yeah, various. Yeah, she's basically going through training about various problems. Let's say a fire breaks out. What do? Right? You're a witch. You could just stuff the fire out right now. You could levitate everyone out of the building right now. Do you do that? Right? Like, all these interesting things. It's a really interesting show. It's called Some Days Dreamers. It's quite all right. And I personally love it. It is made in the early 2000s. Budget is low, animation-wise. It works. It's fine. But this is not a powerhouse of animation quality. But I found it was a really interesting exploration of the topic. Just kind of a fun one. And again, one that nobody's ever seen. So you're looking for something a little bit obscure, a little bit off the beaten path. And just generally a overall sweet show with some slightly more serious sort of undertones. You will definitely get that there. And the other thing I should mention is that we'll see if we get it later on. If we see the other, she also flashes back a lot to her earlier days, her early sort of childhood days with a friend. No, I don't think we see. Oh yeah, there we go. One of the cuter anime girls ever there in the lower left. But later on, the witch gets her senior witch gets another apprentice, who is a city girl, who is very fashionable, who is very trendy. And so now not only is the main character dealing with trying to explore her powers, she's now the country girl next to the city girl. And dealing with all of those sort of questions and issues and so forth. So again, show I just really enjoyed. And I hope you will enjoy it too. Some Days Dreamers. Fun one. Yeah, there's some, wow. Going back through, there's some interesting stuff that happens in this show, just in terms of granting these wishes. And oh yeah, that was the thing they had to deal with. Fun one.
Oh.
It did come out on DVD. Like, that got released over here somehow, for some reason. Dubbed the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
and so the reason I didn't spoil it, and I'll spoil it slightly here. You just see her in the city doing all this stuff and talking to people, and then partway through the first episode, she receives a call from home, and she goes upstairs. And back in the day, no cell phones, and so she goes up to the phone, and the person leaves the room, and she picks up the phone and goes, "Hi, Mama, how are you doing?" And she has her conversation with Mama, and she goes back downstairs and says, "That was a call from my mother, and we had a good conversation." And you realize she's totally suppressing that accent, and you never hear that accent for the rest of the series. You know, she does not want to be seen as that girl from, out in the
yokel.
Yeah. So Suzanne, again, I don't know what good means. Boogie Pop Phantom is similar to Lain. It is not Lain. It is based on a much larger franchise. Boogie Pop Phantom is. It is more episodic. Boogie Pop Phantom is an exploration of the different philosophies teenagers have about life, and which one of them are right and which one of them are wrong, basically. Because folks get involved in some things that are really not wise. It's also very trippy, visually very distinctive. I love it. I think it's really impressive. But I describe them as siblings, right? Lain and we are very much siblings, not the same, but in a similar wheelhouse. And there's the older one, the 1999-2000 one, and then the more recent one from a couple of years ago. The more recent one it's based on a series of novels, and not all of them had come out when the original series came out. And so the new one is an adaptation of all the novels so far, I believe. So you get all the story, whereas the original series is just kind of part of... And it's very intentionally, like they design it so that you're getting this slice, but that slice is kind of all you need in the original series. But FYI. I have a question, though.
What did we learn
What did we learn on the show tonight, Brent? Perfect as always. I learned that there is a competition show for everything now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I learned that Macross is still going, which is nice.
Yes.
I learned that Netflix is involved in a lot of things. Cheap. I also learned that I will say this, actually, not as much something I learned. It's been a long time since I originally watched this series. I first watched Lain over 20 years ago, I think. And I was scared coming back to it. Because we've all had those shows that we watched and we loved, and we come back and we were like, eh. And I actually had that experience once, rewatching Lain, where I was like, I'm glad I'm rewatching this, but okay, like I'm ready to move on. Like that's cool. But coming back to this show now, I'm pulling so much out of it. I'm seeing it's an old friend that I'm able to come back, a weird friend, a disturbed friend.
Nice.
But one
needs intervention.
Yes, exactly. But one that that rewards returning to, and I'm very glad I'm doing it with you.
How about you, Steve?
What have I learned? What do I learn? Can I learn? Is it all a simulation? My shadows look weird. No. I've learned that I am very much surprised at myself for not having watched Lain when it first came out, or within the appropriate sooner amount of time that I should have picked up on it. Loving it, thoroughly enjoying it, and it's making my head hurt. And it's just like I've learned that I still love these kinds of mental challenges, but at the same time I'm just like, Please, God, don't tell me it can be whatever I want it to be. Oh, that's the canon. Okay, great. Thank you. Great, your guys are awesome.
Yeah.
But it's still just a kind of a fun slope to go down. The other thing I learned is that Netflix is starting to turn into a pack of rat bastards, and undercutting an industry that cannot really be undercut much more. And I hope that they stop that downward spiral. Just as they were starting, in my estimation, to start making wise choices. And anime studio. And the last thing I learned was a little bit about myself, and I'm not sure what this actually means. Apparently, 2005 or 2006, clearly I needed malt liquor to make mix CDs. And so that years later, as I'm driving at 6 a.m. on 97 towards Annapolis, I'll have something fun and unusual and weird to listen to. So, not that I want to repeat 2005, because I'm sure there's some bad elements to that, but it was interesting. It's very interesting. How about you?
It was a time.
It was a time.
Yeah, the second journey down the lane.
Oh, nice.
Thank you very much. I'll be here all night. It's definitely a different reward than the first time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first time was a lot of confusion and a lot of getting to a certain point where it's like, I'm just going to have to let it go and just let it go and just see where it leads me. And just now is definitely a better time to sit down and take some notes, take some observations, try to piece things a little together. So that the lane is rewarding the second time down the lane.
Just wait till your fifth rewatch. Then it'll really come together.
Wow. Yeah, then it'll all make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing is that again, Hollywood has proven itself to grab onto things script wise and concept wise that probably fools go in where wise men should fear to tread. So we'll see how that works out with the Made in the Abyss show. Again, Dwayne The Rock. Here we go.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson.
Agreed.
Do it. Let's have this thing happen. Attach Michael Bay. It's good. It's gold. It's gold. And gosh, it's great to see legit auction houses that anime and anime-related materials are on the upswing for value and global appreciation. That's awesome. It's kind of sort of sucks from a perspective as like, I'm not going to be able to afford any of these things now.
Right.
But, there is something to always be said. I talk frequently with you guys about my Macross collection from the 1980s that I have that I'm still sitting on.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, there'll be an auction, in the future, and all my stuff will be there.
Yeah.
It's
not
like
to my benefit, but to my heirs and assigns.
It's like that Mark Hamill Amazing Stories episode. Did you ever see that?
No.
Okay, so Mark Hamill, first of all, the episode starts as a kid, and this leprechaun kind of creature comes up and says, I will make sure that the kid is just like, I want to grow up and be rich. And Leprechaun goes, I will grant you your wish. And he does this thing, and it seems like something magical happens. Then the rest of the episode is the kid aging up, and he ages to Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill grows older until finally. The stipulation is that he has to live as if he were a child.
Oh, interesting.
So he has to be a man-child through his entire life. And finally, he's old, and he gets to the end. At the end of the episode, and he's just looking at his home, and he's not married, doesn't have any kids or anything like that, but it's filled with all these toys, and he just goes off, and he's just like, I wasted my entire life being a child, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. Some dude shows up and goes, oh, your collection is worth millions of dollars.
Nice. There we go.
And he's old by that point?
Yeah. That's the kicker. Yeah.
Nice.
By the way, I just Googled it. I was a bit off, but 15% lower, not 20%. Typical cuts are usually 4,500 yen per cut. A producer working on the Netflix animated Mappa suggested to pay 3,800 yen per month, per cut, instead of 4,500 yen. So that was the offer. The budget for TV series is between 3,800 and 7,000 yen. So yeah, unit price for animators would go down quite a lot, and even those are considered kind of low balls.
Well, I was going to say you're quibbling the difference between 38 and 4,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Sad.
It just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Net. I could just see them coming in and be like, "Hi, can you guys like live on nothing?"
Yeah.
You know, we know that the ramen lifestyle is really setting in for y'all, but can you guys just like live on nothing? That way we don't have to pay much.
And granted, Mappa does not have great working conditions apparently to begin with, so it's kind of all that kind of stuff connected together. Yes, so for those curious, I am live streaming the original Lain PlayStation game on Twitch on Friday nights. That's an experience.
Boy, is it?
I haven't even... So when I stopped streaming on Friday, I was like, okay, good. As I was going to close the window, the screen was replaced with a video of a part of a spine hanging in a lab somewhere. And then just went back to the regular UI. Like a screensaver.
Well, I guess I would have to go on Twitch and watch that. Huh?
That's the thing. This was after I stopped streaming. Like I was all done. I was ready to
damn
go.
it.
It had just been sitting idle for a while, and so I just went over and like, it was like, yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to recreate that so that all the rest of us can watch.
Yes. It's very, very weird. Yeah, the PlayStation, the PlayStation game is different than the anime. Just to be clear, it's a different storyline, obviously different take on the characters, different take on everything going on. I think Lain is the only character who crosses over. I think all the other characters are changed, but
Wow.
very, very interesting. We will be back next week with episodes 3 to 4 of Lain. We will continue analyzing then. We're going to take a week off. We're actually going to have to pause for a little bit. We're going to take a week off. I actually have a trip I'm taking that next weekend. And then we got to do our seasonal anime watching party and analysis for the new season.
Oh,
right. The new season's coming up.
oh my god!
So that's
already
The
Wait,
10th.
what?
The 10th is 3 and 4.
The 17th
17
we're
you're off.
The 24th will be our new season analysis. Yeah.
Holy
It's a little
cow.
late, a little later than usual, but we got to do it.
Yeah, we have to power through that.
Yep.
Boy, boy.
Fortunately, summer's...
Otome. The first episode of Otome is already up.
Okay.
The My Life as a Villainess.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Oh.
Cool.
Okay.
The first episode, I just found it yesterday. I was like, oh.
So we will do that, and so we will probably be back to Lain on the 31st. So again, we'll do Lain next week, but then we'll have a few more weeks of other stuff, and then we'll come back to it after that. And then we may have it's maybe the summer of Lain.
It might well be.
We'll see how all that goes. There's a plan. So, yeah, so next week, so again, Friday, more of the Lain game. Saturday, more analysis of this amazing anime series. As always, thank you all for being here. Thank you, John and Steve. It
Thank
is
you.
awesome
Arigatou gozaimasu.
always having you. Have a great week, everyone. See y'all. Bye.
Sayonara.
Bye.
Jane.
Bye-bye.
Adios, papa. Sayonara, Oji-sama.
And